right. Good evening, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started with this episode of Tech Thursdays. This is going to be episode 151. And this one might be a pretty short episode. We're basically going to talk about the Intel Arc Pro B70. The review video, comparison video is up on the channel as of this morning. So you guys go ahead and check that out if you haven't already seen it. But suffice it to say, I basically answer the question of which AI GPU is the fastest in terms of the two 32 gigabyte GPUs. One is from Intel, that's the B70. We were using it this past weekend. If you tuned into the weekend live streams, we actually live streamed a lot with that GPU. We tested a lot of games. We tested two different platforms, an X870E platform, a Z890 platform, and there's a lot of results. Check out the review video for the full review on it. It's basically a $950 GPU with 32 gigabytes of VRAM. It is Intel's fastest GPU on the market right now. Only available as a workstation blower style card, which can get pretty loud. It can get up to like 2100 RPM. And it's... At first, I thought it was the best value, but after the review, if you guys watch the video, you know the full picture now. There is actually a much better option. It is more expensive. It's from a different vendor. It also has 32 gigabytes of VRAM. We showcased that card in a live stream build last year, and I have live streamed with it extensively throughout this year since January. So I'm not going to spoil the entire video for those of you that haven't seen it yet, but I'll just leave it at that. In the meantime, there is the space mission that is going on. I don't know if you guys are aware. I think it's called Artemis 2 or something. They're basically flying. They flew out to the moon. They went around the moon, slingshot, coming back to Earth. It made me like, hey, where's all my space stuff? I dug out my Mega 01 out of storage with the booster rocket. So there it is right there. Mega 01 with the thrusters, escape velocity. But yeah, so they're supposed to touch down, I think, in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of California tomorrow evening, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know how many people are into outer space and what NASA's doing and all that, and International Space Station, all that stuff, the trip to the moon. But I've been paying attention to that because that seems to be a pretty interesting thing to be tracking. It's not every day that they send people to the moon and back. Now, they didn't land on the moon. They basically did the Apollo 13 mission without mechanical failures. So they actually went a little bit further out than the Apollo 13 mission did. And they didn't crash part of a Saturn V into the moon like Apollo 13 did. But yeah, it made me realize, when I was paying attention to the space mission, I started looking at the Apollo missions, in particular Apollo 11, 12, and 13. And Apollo 11 and 12 were successful. Apollo 13, you can say it was technically not successful, but it was also successful in the sense that Mission Control managed to get 3 astronauts back alive, even after a severe mechanical failure happened in outer space. So I think that is a success in itself. But yeah, I've been paying attention to the Artemis mission, and yeah. We can talk about space later on the stream if we run out of things to talk about. Because remember, if you guys remember CES or GTC or one of those things, I think it was CES. Remember when everyone was presenting AI things? I remember, I think it was AMD's presentation, the keynote. There was a whole segment on AI in space. Because everyone's talking about AI this, AI that. And you know what? I mean, people are like, hey, man, who cares about gamers? We're just going to make graphics cards like this, and we're going to make it only for AI. AI, no gaming allowed. Well, I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't care if this is for AI. I'm going to buy this graphics card and play games on it, and I'm just going to do that because I can. I don't care what they claim this graphics card's for. I'm going to play games on it, and that's exactly what I did. So if you haven't seen the video, go ahead and check it out. I'd appreciate it. But yeah, so that's the latest video. And somebody broke into your home in 1998 and stole G.I. Joe in the astronaut suit? Oh, wow. Wow, man. I'm sorry to hear that. I know that happened like 20 plus years ago. What is that, like 28 years ago? Well, I have a feeling the mission to the moon and back, I think they collected a lot of data. You know, I really miss the space shuttles, though. Do you guys remember the space shuttles? Shout out to all the space shuttles. Columbia, Challenger, Discovery. What was the other one? I always forget the name. Endeavor. What was the... Atlantis. Atlantis and Endeavor. The 5 space shuttles. Columbia was the first. Then there was the unfortunate Challenger. Then Discovery. Then Atlantis. And then Endeavor. And out of the 5 space shuttles, I can't... Did Discovery... I know Columbia, unfortunately, blew up upon re-entry in 2004. Challenger exploded at launch in 1986. Those were the 2 older space shuttles. Then there was Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavor. I can't remember. Did something bad happen to Discovery or Endeavor? I think 3 out of the 5 space shuttles, they're all retired, but I think 3 of them are still around? Can't remember anymore. But as a kid, man, I was so into outer space things. I was so into outer space. When I was in elementary school, I was a huge, like, space junkie. If that's even a thing that a little kid can be. You know, like, I love the space shuttle. That's how I still remember all 5 space shuttles' names. And I know the order of them, too. So yeah, this is technically not an actual space shuttle. For those of you who recognize what this little thing is, congratulations. If you're someone who grew up in the 90s as a small child, you might recognize what this thing is. But yeah, anyway, that is a little bit of trivia on the space shuttle missions. Before that, there was the Saturn V, the Apollo missions. Now, that is way before my time, so I don't know anything about that. But I remember the movie Apollo 13. In fact, I have the urge, when the whole Artemis mission was going on, I've had the urge to want to watch Apollo 13 again. I feel like that's one of the best... I know it's a dramatization of a terrible thing that happened in space, but thankfully, nobody actually died, so it was actually a success story in the end. But that's actually a pretty good movie. Like, I know that they took liberties with having to speed up the frequency in which events happened throughout the Apollo 13 mission, but they had to do that for movie reasons, for theatrical reasons. But still, that's probably one of the better space movies. So if somebody asked me, you know, like, what's a good sci-fi space movie? I mean, technically that one's not even really sci-fi because it's based off of a real thing. But that's a pretty good one. Apollo 13 is a pretty good movie. Now I'm a silicon junkie. Yeah, pretty much with all these GPUs just laying around. You know what I'm saying? We got a B70 just hanging out here on the desk doing absolutely nothing. So I need to put this back into the system over there. And we're going to be live streaming on the B70 again this weekend. I'm not sure what we're going to be streaming. I've been wanting to play Crimson Desert, but you can't really play Crimson Desert on a V70, at least not yet. Extendify PC, thanks for joining them as a member. Welcome to the PC Pros family. Thanks for the 7 months. Wow. I really think this week or this month, there's not a lot of tech things besides 2 particular things. One of them is the B70, which we've talked about. Actually, I take that back. There's technically 3 things. There was Intel's refresh of Arrow Lake, which is not terrible. The price point makes it actually quite good. If you take the price into account, it's actually good value. The B70 I thought was good value, but I actually don't think it's that good of a value anymore. But you should watch my review video to understand the full picture on that. So that leaves one more product for the month of April for tech enthusiasts. And that is going to be none other than the Ryzen 9 9950 X3D2, or as everyone seems to be calling it, the D2. You know, when I went to Micro Center the other day, because I had to return and exchange, I exchanged my B70. The first B70 that I got had a problem. And I mentioned this in the review video. And this is the reason why the review video took so long to be released. I originally planned to basically post the review video or the comparison video for the B70 on Monday or Tuesday of this week. But because of the problems I kept running into with the original card from Micro Center, the main problem was it was not running at PCI Gen 5 no matter what I did. It was always coming up as PCI Gen 4. And Intel's Graphics Command Center kept complaining, saying that, oh, this is capable of Gen 5, but it cannot run Gen 5 due to a system limitation. So I'm thinking, like, it's not my motherboard, because my motherboard is Gen 5. It is an X870E motherboard with the Crosshair Hero, and there's no way, unless there's some problem with the BIOS and Intel's VBIOS not negotiating Gen 5. So at first I did a bunch of things. I went into the BIOS. I changed it from auto to manually set PCI Gen 5. F10, go back into Windows. Nothing changes. It's still Gen 4. So then I take out the GPU. I plug in another GPU, the Intel Arc Pro B70. The B50 comes up as PCIe Gen 5. 8 lanes, because it only has 8 lanes. So I knew, okay, it's definitely not the motherboard, because the other Intel card is negotiating Gen 5. So then I put an AMD card in. I think I put a 9070 XT, because the 9070 XT is a Gen 5 card. At this point, I hadn't tested the 9700. That came later. So that was still in the Threadripper system. And I don't like taking those apart if I don't have to, because I don't want to mess with the 12-volt high power cable all the time. So I tested a 9070 XT. Sure enough, comes up, PCIe Gen 5, 16 lanes, no problem. So I'm thinking something's weird with this Intel GPU. So then I'm like, I'm going to try a different motherboard. So actually, I should probably be writing this down. So if those of you that are paying attention can probably see what I was doing. So basically, I did Crosshair Hero. I did auto, so it's like PCIe mode. The default is auto. Then I did Gen 5 manual. So regardless of what I did, you know, the B70 was always running Gen 4, no matter what I was doing. I go put an AMD card in, it goes to Gen 5. I put another Intel card in, like a B50, it goes to Gen 5. So something is weird. So then I'm like, okay, let's go to a different motherboard. Let's go to the Phantom Gaming Nova. Because I thought, okay, maybe it doesn't like the PLX in here. So let's go to the one that's native. So then we go to Nova, because Nova's really good in the sense that it's not going to mess with the negotiation because there's no PLX switch, unlike the Crosshair. So now it's like, okay, auto, and it still goes Gen 4. Then I do manual Gen 5. It still goes Gen 4. So something was definitely wrong with that graphics card. Another issue with that graphics card, the first B70, was sometimes I run a benchmark or do something like this happened when we were live streaming last weekend with that card. Remember how you guys, if you guys were watching the live stream last weekend, do you guys remember when I kept saying that for some reason, like part of the screen, the text is blurry it's like out of focus for some reason. Like the left side of the screen was okay, text was clear, but the right side of the screen, it was blurry. This was happening on the 4K 240 hertz OLED. It was not happening on the 144 hertz TN panels that were only 1440p. So something weird was going on with the Intel GPU. So what I did was I took it back to Micro Center and I exchanged it for another one, and they only had one. So here's the crazy thing about the Micro Center. So Micro Center only had two. They were out of stock, but they actually had two that were on web order. So I couldn't buy, like they couldn't sell me those two cards because they were waiting for whoever ordered them via web order, online order, to come pick them up. They were waiting for those guys to show up to pick up those cards. It was two separate orders, two different people. So then I had to wait. So the sales guy told me there's one of these cards comes off of web order at 8 p.m. So if you come to the store at 8 p.m., if the card's still there, we'll just sell you the card. We don't care if that guy ordered it online. His order is going to get canceled because they don't bill him until he comes to picks it up, right? So they'll hold it, I think, for like 48 or 72 hours. I can't remember how long. It's one of those things, 48 or 72 hours. The second card falls off web order like Friday, which would be tomorrow. So I was like, okay, I'll show up in the evening. I go to the store. It fell off web order. The guy never picked it up, so they sold me the card. So I did the exchange. I basically returned the first one. I got the replacement one right here. And this one seems to work as expected. You plug it into the motherboard. I first tested it with Phantom Gaming Nova, and it comes up Gen 5. It's the new card, so it's like, this is the old card. This is like original B70. This one is replacement B70. So the new one seems to work. Like it comes up, I do auto, it comes up Gen 5. Full 16 lanes. You plug a second GPU and it goes Gen 5 X8. So it seems like it's working on both motherboards. I did ASRock also, Gen 5. So, and so far with the second card, I have not seen the issue where parts of the text on the OLED screen is blurry. We're going to test that this weekend. That's one of the reasons why I want to do another live stream, because I'm testing the newer card. Now, the video that's on the channel right now, the review video is 100% based off of the second card. All the stuff that I did with the original card, I had to throw that out because I considered it invalid data. So everything, I basically had to retest a whole second time. And this is the reason why the video only went live this morning, because I was delayed by like 2 days because of this issue with the original B70. And another thing that I noticed with B70, the thermal paste application from the factory is, let's just say there's a high degree of variance. The original card I had was relatively quiet. It was surprisingly quiet for a blower style card. This replacement card is louder. It's like a 200 RPM louder at the same exact temperature. So like they both get up to like 77, 78 degrees Celsius. That's normal for them because that's the fan profile stock. And the original one at 77, 78 degrees, we're talking like 2000 RPM, which is not quiet. You'll still hear it. Then the replacement one, same exact temperature, 77, 78 degrees, but it's like 21 to 2200 RPM, which is noticeably louder than the original one. So my guess is the hotspot on my replacement card is worse. It's hotter than the first card that I had, but at least the second card seems to operate more normal. Like it doesn't give me that weird blurry stuff on the screen, and it seems to be able to do Gen 5, although the other day it was doing Gen 4 randomly. So I don't know what the actual root cause is. I haven't been able to figure out if that is a VBIOS problem, a motherboard BIOS problem. I mentioned all of this in the video that is on the channel right now. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't. If you're curious about more about this AI GPU, definitely check that out. There is one AI benchmark in the video because I know that the card was meant for AI. So there's one AI benchmark, and I will do more AI benchmarks in the future in a separate video that is dedicated to AI. But I wanted to put the content that is not out there, and that is the gaming performance. Because there are so many people that, despite Intel saying this is an AI only GPU, do not use it for gaming, there is still so many people curious to know how a B70 games, because it is even though it's not meant for gaming, it is Intel's biggest GPU. It has the largest die. It is significantly larger than the B580. This is the true successor to the A770 in terms of the chip size, the bus width, everything. So this is the real deal as far as I'm concerned. And there's no reason why you can't play games on this graphics card regardless of whatever anyone tells you. That's the way I look at it. A graphics card is a graphics card at the end of the day. If you want to use it for crypto mining, use it for crypto mining. If you want to use it for AI, use it for AI. And if you want to use it for gaming, guess what? You can use it for gaming. No one's going to be able to stop you. That's how it is. This is a GPU. I'm going to play games with it. I don't care if someone says it's for AI. I'm going to play games on it because I can. And that's what I wanted to show in that video. And you can play games on it. We've done 2 live streams already with it. You guys who tuned into those live streams, you already have a relative picture of how well the card performs or underperforms in some cases. But it is what it is. Everything is super expensive right now. VRAM seems like it's at an all-time high premium. And also I learned some stuff about memory. The price of memory is going to go up again because... well, I don't know about the others, but Samsung is going to raise the prices again. They're going to raise the prices on the SSDs and the memory again, but instead of doing it all at once like they did in the last 4 months, they're going to do it more gradually so that people don't catch on. So they're trying to avoid the public getting shocked, and getting angry. So they're going to slowly ramp it this time for the rest of the year. Or at least the next 6 months. Okay, so those are the main concerns I have with the GPU. And I'm pretty sure you guys, if you're interested in buying this card, $950 is a lot of money on a graphics card. So you need to be aware of running into these problems. When I told the Micro Center people, when I returned the first card, they're like, wow, thanks for bringing this to our attention because this could be a bad batch, So, and I was telling them, there's probably a ton of people out there when they buy a GPU, they don't actually verify certain things. Like, for example, when I buy a GPU, what is the first thing I do? Besides install the drivers. I check all the display ports on the back. I test every single one of the display outputs. HDMI, DisplayPort, all of them. I test every single one of them to make sure that they all work at 4K, 240 hertz resolution, or whatever they're spec'd for. If it's DisplayPort 2.1, I'm going to be testing 4K 240 hertz. Full bandwidth. So I don't know how many gamers actually do that. And the sales guy was telling me, I bet pretty much almost 90% of everyone who buys GPUs probably doesn't do that. I also test PCIe, bandwidth, advertised speeds. So for example, this GPU is a PCIe Gen 5 X16 graphics card. That means it should run Gen 5, 16 lanes, full bandwidth. I test that. That is the reason why I returned the original card. Because the original card was stuck at PCIe Gen 4, no matter what I did. So this card seems to work at Gen 5. And what do? Fire up 3D Mark, go to the PCIe bandwidth test that they have, the benchmark, and let it run. And let me get the numbers. It better give me those Gen 5 numbers. You can also check with hardware info. Now, unfortunately, I usually use GPU-Z to check PCIe bandwidth, speed, and advertised, and power down mode and power up mode. Unfortunately, GPU-Z has not been updated yet to support the B70. So if you fire up GPU-Z and you have the B70, it doesn't know what the GPU is, so it's not going to give you any accurate info. So you can't rely on GPU-Z, at least not right now. So these are the sort of things that I do. I test, advertise, spec, all the ports, everything. Stability testing, before I try to use it for any sort of productivity, I fire up like either a 3D Mark benchmark or some Final Fantasy 14 bench, whatever. Just fire up some benchmark. It doesn't matter. Fire up whatever game you have that has built-in benchmark, put it through its paces, verify it works. This is the sort of stuff that the factory does when they're manufacturing the card. They test these things with like Unigine Valley or Unigine Heaven or maybe 3D Mark or whatever. They're testing them. I basically verify that they did the test. I do my own test. And if it's good, it's good. And then I start using it in the real world. What did we do last weekend? We live streamed in front of the crowd, in front of the public. This is the graphics card. This is how it works. Everything. I don't know how other people stress test their hardware, because here's the thing, guys. Keep this in mind. When you buy computer hardware, there is a window of opportunity for you to return the hardware, no questions asked, regardless of whether there's a problem with it or you just don't want it anymore or whatever. If you don't do your due diligence and verify that everything works within that return window period, you go beyond whatever it is, 14 days, or some stores it's like 15 days. I think Best Buy is 14, 15 days. Micro Center is like 30 days if you're an insider, so it's really, really good. You can literally have the whole thing for a month, essentially. And then they'll take it back, no questions asked. If you go beyond that, though, and you find a problem because you didn't test within the return window, now you have to deal with an RMA. Meaning now you have to contact whoever, unless you bought the store replacement plan that they always try to sell you. Like, oh, for like $100, you can, if something comes up, you can bring it to us. We'll replace it or give you store, whatever it is, right? Like Micro Center has that. I'm pretty sure you can buy extended warranty or store warranty for other things if you buy it off of Newegg or something. But if you decline those things, you only get the manufacturer's warranty, which is usually okay. But if something goes wrong, now you have to deal with opening a support ticket, contacting whoever is the brand of your GPU. So like, for example, if I have a problem with this GPU, like for example, if I never return this to Micro Center because I didn't test the Gen 5, Gen 4 issue, now I got to open a case with Intel. And now Intel's going to be like, okay, did you try this? Did you try that? You got to deal with the troubleshooting. It's like, yeah, I DDU, I do the thing, I install the latest, same thing, same problem, blah, 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 3 different motherboards, same problem. So then they're like, okay, let's do an RMA. Then you gotta ship us the card. Then when we get it, then we're gonna test it. Then we'll send you. It's like, yeah, do you really want to deal with that? Versus you have a return window, it doesn't work, just take it back to the store and get another one. That's what I do. This is the reason why I have so many graphics cards with no problems. Because I verify, this is what I strongly believe. If the graphics card if the computer hardware is good from the factory when you get it brand new, most likely it'll be fine for the entire useful lifespan. Unless you do something to it, like you ESD shock it or whatever, like you overclock it or what, you mess it up somehow. Then you messed it up. Then that's on you. But if it's fine from day one, and you test it and it's fine, typically it's going to be good, way beyond the warranty. That's how I've got so many CPUs, so many GPUs, none of them have any problems. So, but you got to do your due diligence in the beginning. When you have that return window, when that window of opportunity is there to exchange for another without any issues, you never have to deal with the warranty. You never have to deal with support tickets. That is the best way to do it. That's how I handle my hardware. That's why I've almost had zero to no problems. That being said, I did have to deal with an RMA last summer. You guys remember the MSI Godlike? Anyone who was interested in the Godlike is probably familiar with the infamous Dynamic Dashboard 3 issue, which I made a video about. Yeah, I had to RMA the dashboard to MSI last summer, and they sent me a new one. But they were flexible enough. They were like, okay, you can just send us the display. You can keep the motherboard. We're just going to send you a new display. You don't have to send us the whole motherboard. And I didn't want to send them the whole motherboard because the motherboard was good. So, you know, that was pretty easy. So MSI, their RMA group was pretty good. They handled it real well. So, but, you know, sometimes support is not that good. But you also have to know how to articulate the problem to them to get to the right solution quickly. Otherwise, you end up spinning your wheels and going through unnecessary troubleshooting cycles that just waste everybody's time. You order a lot of open box stuff from Newegg and you test the day it arrives. Oh yeah, dude. For an open box, oh man. Yeah. Open box, you have to test like a lot. You have to look at things because there might be a bent pin somewhere that not on the socket, but I'm just saying like there might be a bent fan header or something touching another thing and shorting something. Yeah. Open box, I've bought a couple of open box things myself. I bought an open box. I bought an open box Gigabyte board once a few years ago, and it never had any problems. In fact, right now if you live near a Micro Center, you can get an open box Gigabyte a B650 board for very, very cheap. We're talking like under $100. It's like $80 for a B650 open box from Micro Center. Because of all those people who don't know how to wait for memory training on the first boot up. Okay, so let's switch gears here a little bit. Let's discuss this one article, and we're going to talk about a motherboard. We're going to go through a motherboard review that WCCF Tech, or not WCC, Tech Power Up has a review on the MSI X870 Ace Max. So I want to look at that, because that's a pretty interesting motherboard. But let's go ahead and look at this article regarding the Pro B70. So Intel Arc Pro B70 Quad GPU setup reportedly consumes up to 720 watts in inferencing workloads. So does that make sense? Because let me do the math on that. It's typically 160 times 4. So, okay, so that's actually higher than I thought. So that's what, 2, wow, okay. It's 180 instead of 160. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so it's about 180 watts per GPU in inferencing workloads, assuming all of them are evenly sharing the workload. But yeah, you can see this is why they're using the blower style cooler, because the blower style gets air in from the top and the bottom of the GPU. And it creates basically like a wind tunnel here across all 4 of them, because all 4 of them are spinning at the same RPM. And then they just kind of like all exhaust the heat out the back. So very efficient. I really am a big fan of blower style GPU coolers. I know most gamers don't like them because they're loud, but they are definitely a very good design for scalability. They're also very reliable. This design, the blower style design, is incredibly durable and incredibly reliable. It removes a lot of build design constraints from the system. For example, if you don't care about airflow at all, like you don't want to run any case fans, or you want to put like one case fan backwards or something and just do everything wrong. You know, just completely unoptimized airflow everywhere, terrible airflow, so that the CPU has very high temperatures, the RAM has high temperatures, the VRMs have high temperatures. The GPU doesn't care. The blower style GPU literally doesn't care about your airflow, because it will create the airflow it needs by vacuuming up the air in the case and ejecting it out the back of the graphics card, out the back. So all the hot air comes out. So the nice thing about this design is you don't have to worry about the GPU dumping heat into the case, because it doesn't do it. It expels it out the back. So the only components that... So, yeah, the CPU, the RAM, the VRM, those things share the heat in the case. The GPU doesn't, because the GPU is literally a self-contained system by itself when it's using the blower style. The other thing about the blower style that I really like, the radial impeller style fan on a blower style cooler is far more durable than an axial design that goes on a standard gaming GPU. This is called a radial fan. Radial fans are way more reliable. These are the type of fans that are in like HVAC systems for cars, for automotive. You know what I'm saying? These things are not going to die. These are built like tanks. Radial fans are way more durable. As a result, they can spin to much higher RPM speeds. Much higher RPM speeds. No, this has very good airflow. This is very good airflow. For the CPU, doesn't have to worry. This is obviously a Threadripper CPU in there. You can see it's got that Silverstone thing on the top. The RAM is above and below. So yeah, this is actually the exact same. Oh, this is a different one. I think this is the ASRock motherboard. But yeah, anyway. Yeah. Power consumption. Power consumption under load. 2 of them is 367. 4 of them is 720 watts. 1 of them is 180 watts. So yeah, that sounds about right. So lots of power. I'm really interested to see this one, B60 Dual. Now, this is a graphics card that is very interesting, but it's one that I'm probably not going to get. It's fascinating because we haven't seen a dual GPU in a long time, but this one is truly AI exclusive, because if you try to game on the Pro B70 Dual, you're only ever going to use half of the graphics card. The other die is going to sit there and do absolutely nothing, because Intel doesn't have a Crossfire X or an SLI based solution. They leverage mGPU over PCIe, kind of like what AMD did in the latter days of Crossfire, but it doesn't do anything for gaming. Intel literally doesn't have anything programmed that's API specific for multi-GPU when it comes to gaming. They never dedicate any resources to it. There's no documentation for it. So it doesn't even work on Linux. So this is really truly an AI exclusive graphics card. So it's nice because 48 gigs is more than 32, but it is a 24 plus 24. It's dual 24 gigabyte dies together on the same PCB. So really interesting GPU. We're not going to cover it on this channel. I don't know why it's PCI Gen 5 X8. I feel like that is a massive... Oh, that's just the single. That's the single one. So the dual one should be X16. Otherwise, they're going to have some serious problems with PCIe bandwidth. But anyway, yeah, that is the other one. MSRP is around... why does it say $2,000 plus as of April? Oh, yeah, it would be $2,000 because it's 48 gigs. Yeah. VRAM is king. VRAM determines how much a GPU is priced at. So 32 gigs B70 is around $1,000. This one, dual die, 48 gigs. This one will be close to $2,000. At $1,500, this would be a really good deal though, for that much VRAM. But I can see them definitely charging $2,000. I feel like this is really the test GPU. This is one to test how diehard can an Intel fanboy be to truly buy this. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm wondering who is going to actually buy this instead of buying like a B70. Because I think a B70 is a better deal all the way. Even two B70s. If this thing is $2,000, it's better to buy two B70s separately. Because then you're paying the same amount of money and you're getting better dies, like larger dies, and you're getting 64 gigs of VRAM. So I don't know. I kind of think in that case, this should be less than 2,000. It says 1,200. I don't know. I don't know what the price points are on these anymore. The GPU pricing is so unreliable these days, it seems. The dual will need PCI bifurcation. Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. It would need to be X8, X8. It needs to... Well, no, it doesn't need to be. Not necessarily. Because if I remember correctly, no, it doesn't have to be manually bifurcated in the BIOS. What happens is these dual GPUs, if I remember how they used to work more than a decade ago, they work in the way that they have something called, there's a controller on the PCB that self-bifurcates. It self-bifurcates, so you don't have to do anything in the BIOS. Because there are NVMe PCIe cards you can get that are self-bifurcated, which means you don't have to touch the BIOS settings for them to actually detect all the drives, or there are non-self-bifurcating. Like, I'll give you an example. The Asus Hyper M.2 card that I use in my Threadripper system for 4 NVMe drives, that is not a self-bifurcating card. That means that if I want to use all 4 SSDs, I have to go into my BIOS and convert it from X16 to X4, 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 X4 manually. That is a non-self-bifurcating NVMe PCIe card. These dual GPUs typically take care of that process automatically because they don't expect the users to go in the BIOS and mess with the settings. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe Intel doesn't have a self-bifurcating chip that handles the PCIe distribution, the lane distribution. If that's the case, then you do have to go into the BIOS and manually bifurcate the slot. But I would assume that you don't have to do that. Especially if they're charging $2,000, you shouldn't have to go in the BIOS. It should do it automatically. Alright, well that was the B70 and the B60 dual. So another hardware launch that took place this month is a new motherboard from MSI. It's new-ish. This motherboard, I don't know why it took so long for them to launch this motherboard. They're just kind of launching it now randomly. Which is interesting because in like 2 weeks, there's going to be a new CPU that's launching soon. That will be perfect for this motherboard. So, and we're going to talk about that CPU later in the stream. This motherboard is an ATX motherboard. So not EATX. So different from the last one. The previous one was an EATX. 5 M.2s. So let's take a look. It comes in this really big box. AMD Ryzen 9000 desktop ready. 10 gigabit Ethernet. 40 gigabit dual 40 gigabit USB-C Ultra USB. I don't know what that's why it says Ultra. Ultra Connect. Wi-Fi. Oh, because they're advertising. It has 10 gig LAN, 40 gigabit USB-C, 2 of them, and Wi-Fi 7. And a 64 megabyte BIOS chip. Ready for AI. They had to plaster it on there somewhere. Ready for AI PC. Because Gigabyte went and named everything AI, and then they named everything X3D, and then everything X3D AI. MSI's like, okay, fine, we'll just plaster AI on it and call it a day, you know? Like, that's what everybody seems to want. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Ultra Power Plus. It looks like it's, what, 18 plus 2 plus 1? With an OC engine. Ultra Connect. Lots of USB on the back, just like the Godlike. They basically copy-pasted the Godlike's I.O. plate on the back, and they just put it over here. That's good, because you get a cost savings going with the Ace, and you still get the Godlike's identical I.O. You get 60-watt fast charging on the front panel USB-C. That is a 10, I think it's either a 10 or 20 gig USB-C. Frozer design. ROM chip for the BIOS is very good. All this stuff. User manual is on a QR code. No actual paper manual. Here are all the things. So you get SATA cables. It looks like there's one right-angled one straight-angled one. Actually, you get two of each. So you get two right-angled ones for your traditional 3.5-inch hard drives. And then you get two flat ones for 2.5-inch SSDs. It's like SATA-based SSDs, or 2.5-inch hard drives if you actually use laptop hard drives in a desktop. And then it has the Wi-Fi 7 with the antenna leads, and they're using that weird screwless connector, which I don't really know if I like it as much as the original screw-on design, because the screw-on ones are really, really solid. They don't go anywhere. These, a cat or someone can go and mess with this and like pop it out. And then you got the adapter for their Easy Connect, some thermistor probes, and what looks like some kind of ARGB extension cable, and looks like another extension. There's like two of them, or maybe three of them. It looks like this one has a splitter built in. This is a straight through. And then you have more of those thermal probe things. So that's, and then you get your little, I think the drivers are on here. I'm not sure. And then there's like a key for something, like a car key. What is that key? There's a USB drive in there. An Easy Connect cable, 1 to 3 RGB, easy from, okay, and 2 thermistor. I don't know what that little key thing is. All right, board layout. Here it is. You guys can see, I look at the board. What is the first thing I do? I look at the screw hole on the top right. This immediately tells me it is ATX. It is not eATX. I can tell by looking, the screw hole immediately after ends. That means ATX, not eATX. Because if there was more motherboard that extends past this screw hole, I know it's eATX. I also look for the debug. There's the debug. MSI puts it in a really good spot. It's not all the way up at the top, and it's not all the way down at the bottom. This is like the best placement, because if you have your computer tower on the floor, like most people do, myself included, if the debug code is all the way at the top of the motherboard, if you look down at your case, you can't see the postcode debug if it's all the way at the top, like how Asus does it. Because it's covered up by the 360 radiator or the top of the case, whatever, you can't see it. MSI puts it low enough down here so that the AIO is not going to block it. The top of the case isn't going to block it. I can look down and I can see the postcode debug without having to like really look over at the case. You know what I'm saying? So this is a very good design decision. This is called industrial design. Somebody actually did usability studies when they designed the layout of where these things go. So very, very good. The Tomahawk does this. The Carbon also does this. So here it is, the button. They have the physical button. Good job. No more worrying about scratching the GPU like on the Asus boards, because Asus got rid of the button. Now it's funny because the Dark Hero brought back the button. On the Asus refresh boards, they've got the button again. But the X870, the Z890s, the X870Es that featured the Q latch on Asus, they can scrape up your PCIe connectors. I've scraped out a couple of mine, so I know. But yeah, the button, don't have to worry about that. And then the slots, CMOS battery is easy to get. It's right there. It's visible. So the slots are identical to the Godlike. So you have an X16 Gen 5, you have an X8 Gen 5, and then you have an X4. But here's where it gets different from the Godlike. The bottom slot, just like the Godlike, is an open X4 design, which means you can put a full X16, physical X16 PCIe device in here, and it'll fit. Now, it won't latch in because there's no latch, but it'll fit in because they left this end of it open. This is what I mean by open-ended. Open-ended X4. This is an X4. I can eyeball this and I immediately know this is 4 lanes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a 4-lane PCIe slot. Here is where it gets different from the Godlike. MSI wanted to maintain that Gen 5 bandwidth on all 3 slots as a carryover from the previous X670E Ace, because that one featured a physical 16 slot at the bottom, a third one down here, but it was Gen 5 bandwidth. So what they have done here is, instead of using chipset lanes to provide like a Gen 4 X4, which is what the Godlike does, they don't do that. They actually use CPU direct connected Gen 5 lanes to this bottom slot. Therefore, it achieves the same spec as the older Ace, the previous generation one, the EATX one, which was a very good motherboard. So they're able to do that. But there is a caveat. The way they've done this is this bottom slot shares PCIe Gen 5 lanes with the topmost PCIe Gen 5 slot, the NVMe. So this NVMe at the top here, where it has the Ace logo on top of that heatsink, that is 4 lanes of Gen 5 from the CPU. That is meant to be your boot drive. This bottom slot shares bandwidth with that SSD. So that means if you want to use the bottom PCIe slot and the top NVMe slot, both of them simultaneously will only have 2 lanes each of Gen 5 bandwidth, which for most people is probably totally fine. 2 lanes of Gen 5, a Samsung 990 EVO is all the more relevant than ever when it comes to these MSI motherboards because of all that bandwidth sharing. So you can still do that. You can still plug in like a, I don't know, something that has 2 lanes of Gen 5 down here. So you could do something funny. You could put like an NVMe add-in card and install another Samsung 990 EVO on there. And that would be 2 lanes of Gen 5 to that SSD and then 2 lanes of Gen 5 to the other SSD. So now you have 2 NVMEs, 2 lanes Gen 5 each versus 1 NVMe at 4 lanes of Gen 5. So I don't know. It depends on how much you value Gen 5 SSD speeds. Personally, they don't make much of a difference in real-world uses. So 2 lanes of Gen 5 is totally fine because 2 lanes of Gen 5 is equal to 4 lanes of Gen 4. So that's why I don't see any problem with that. It gives you flexibility, although some people might not like that. They might not like that the bottom slot is sharing with the top NVMe. And then you know that these two, the first and second, share bandwidth with each other as well. Okay, what's interesting about it, though, is the fifth NVMe. So you can see right here, 1, 2, 3 and I guess 4, or 4 somewhere is, maybe it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. So the fifth one, I would guess, would go down here. But that's not where it is. It's actually on the back. So MSI put the fifth M.2. You can see it right in here. It's like they did the Sony PS5 thing. The Sony PS5 does this. They put that NVMe add-in the PS5 on the back side of the PCB. So they went and did a Sony PS5 thing and stuck the fifth one on the back. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't really like this, to be honest. I would prefer all SSDs be on the front side of the motherboard, because the reason why I don't like this is because unless you're going to put in, at minimum, a 4 terabyte NVMe back here, and if you're running Gen 4, you're going to need a heatsink. Now, it could be a small heatsink. I don't know what the clearance is on this, but it doesn't look like it's going to be that good. You could always just run something that doesn't use a heatsink, but then I don't know if that's a good idea for the health of the NAND flash in the controller long term, because it's back here where there's not very good airflow. So I feel like you need a heatsink on the NVMe that goes here. But then that raises concern with clearance, because the motherboard touches the case on the case standoffs there on the back. So I don't know. It creates an extra level of complexity. Also, like I said, if you put in a 4 terabyte or an 8 terabyte, it shouldn't be a problem for the life of the motherboard and SSD. But if you put a 2 terabyte back here, day one, if you use a lot of data, I don't know, that's going to be kind of annoying, because it's like to upgrade it in the future, you have to take the entire motherboard out just to swap SSDs. So I'm not a huge fan of this being on the back, to be honest. I don't like that. But it is what it is. At least they offer 5. Okay, and here they show you 1, 2, 3, 4. There are the dual chipsets. Those are those B650 chipsets. 2 B650s form an X670. Or we can say each one of these is an X870. So 2 X870s equals 1 X870E. So this is how you can tell it's an X870E when you see 2 of them together. Because you guys know how I draw my block diagrams. I'm literally drawing these things out sequentially, as shown here physically. But there you go. There's the dual chipset. And there, I like how every single one of the NVMEs are double-sided heat spreaders, just like on the Godlike. And I believe the Carbon is like this as well. I know the Tomahawk doesn't have bottom side heat spreaders on all of the drives. I think they only do it on 1, maybe 2, if I remember correctly. But that's pretty much the board. And then here's the block diagram. They include it very good. You can see your 2 PCIe slots share lanes with each other. So the first one's 16, but as soon as you plug in the second one, now this first one drops to X8, so it's X8, X8. You have a Gen 5 SSD that shares the bandwidth lanes with that bottom PCIe slot. So like I said earlier. And then also the second NVMe slot. So the one that is, I assume this one, immediately underneath the GPU. That one shares bandwidth with the USB 4 controller, just like the Godlike and the Tomahawk. So this is totally normal. We've seen this on a lot of MSI motherboards. In fact, a lot of the other brands like Gigabyte and ASRock have copied MSI's homework, and they're doing the same thing on their refresh boards. Asus, I think, the Dark Hero, if I remember, the Dark Hero does this as well. So even Asus is copying MSI. So everybody's copying MSI, because it's a really nice way to get more functionality, more options to the user without compromising too much on bandwidth, because PCIe Gen 5 has so much bandwidth per lane. This is why it's not a big deal to run a Gen 5 SSD at 2 lanes. Now, people are probably not going to like that, because it's like, oh, if I have to run it at 2 lanes, I still have to buy a more expensive Gen 5 to get essentially Gen 4 maximum speed. So that is a kind of a negative point, but personally, 2 lanes of Gen 5 is totally enough bandwidth. Then you get an HDMI in the back. You get the integrated audio, some USB ports that connect directly to the CPU. This is unique to AMD, by the way. AMD is the only CPU architect company that builds like USB interfaces that go straight to the CPU. Intel does not do this. Intel always plugs USBs into the chipset. They never plug them directly into the CPU. Now, plugging it directly into the CPU is not a good thing, or I mean, it's technically it's lower latency, so technically the USB ports, at least these, should perform faster than the ones that go through the chipset. And then you get down to the first chipset, you get 2 SATA drives, each are consuming 1 Gen 3 lane, and then your Aquantia 10 gigabit network card, that LAN is using the 2 other Gen 4 lanes. So you remember there are 4, did I say Gen 4? Gen 3 lanes. So you have 4 Gen 3 lanes and 4 Gen 4 lanes on the first chipset. The 4 Gen 4 lanes go to this NVMe drive, which looks like it's the one on the back. So strangely enough, the one on the back of the motherboard is the one that connects to the first chipset. Because it says M.2_5, which I assume is the 5th one and the last one, so it's probably the one on the back. And then you have your 2 Gen 3 for 10 gig and 2 more Gen 3 for one each for the SATA. So nothing's wasted, everything is used. And then of course you're using USB interfaces for all your USB, including the HD audio. This is plugging in on a USB port. And then at the bottom, the second chipset, we have the 3rd and 4th NVMe. Remember, the second chipset has 8 lanes of Gen 4. The top one has 4 lanes of Gen 4, but the bottom one has 8 lanes. Why does it have more than the middle one? Because it's terminating the chain. It's not having to dangle 4 lanes underneath it to connect to another chipset. So instead of dangling the 4 lanes down there, it connects them to an NVMe drive. That's why it has more lanes. It's terminating the link to an NVMe. All right, so all 8 lanes are taken up by those those SSDs. Then you have 4 lanes of Gen 3 that remain, 1 per SATA, so that's 2 out of 4 accounted for on the 2 SATA. Then you have 1 Gen 3 for your 5 gig LAN and the final Gen 3 for Wi-Fi 7. So everything is accounted for, nothing is wasted. This is a fully utilized dual chipset system. Everything is accounted for. MSI has done a good job. So you're basically getting your money's worth with this motherboard. They're not shortchanging you the way Gigabyte was back in 2024 when they launched a bunch of Aorus motherboards that left lanes unutilized. Even on their like super expensive Aorus whatever. I can't remember what it was. I think the Aorus Extreme or whatever. All right, anyway. So other things, your standard stuff that people still kind of use. 60-watt fast charging, power and reset buttons on the motherboard, and you get some stuff here. Your JFP1 connector, the water flow. There's the button, so you can see. And then we have RGB header, USB 2.0 headers, the pump system and the flow. This is for like a full custom loop. Extra PCIe 8-pin for supplemental power, auxiliary power. In this scenario, MSI is basically assuming that someone is going to run multi-GPU, so they want to run some of the power plane down here to help with stabilizing voltage load across the motherboard. So that's why this is here. So this helps with stability. This is only really useful if you're maxing out the motherboard, like you're going to use all 3 PCIe slots, 2 graphics cards plus some other thing or whatever, and then you're going to overclock everything and run it all maxed out. Then this comes in really handy. And then they've got some temperature sensor, that's where the probes go. There's the PlayStation 5 style NVMe slot on the back. This is the Gen 5 heatsink, which doesn't really look that good. I mean, this looks adequate, but it doesn't look exceptional. For a Gen 5 heatsink. For Gen 4, yeah, this is really good. But for Gen 5, I don't know. That looks okay. And that's how it looks. There's the CMOS battery. Tons of USB on the back. Despite using all the USB-C, they still are offering a bunch of USB-A, which a lot of people still use, myself included. And you see 10 gig plus 5 gig. HDMI is there. Your dual USB 40 gigs. And each of those support DisplayPort output, which means you can literally drive 3 monitors off of your integrated graphics. And then it has optical audio. So all that stuff is there. Let's skip to the... Let's just skip to the... What is this finished looks into the system? Okay, this is what he did. Okay, he tested with a 9950X, the flagship. Conclusion. Attractive design, 10 gig Ethernet, decent number of USB. I would say a lot of USB, not decent. That's a lot. This is above average USB. Loads of fan headers with up to 36 watt output. Decent EFI. Decent EFI. If you don't know what that means, this is the extensible firmware interface. So the UEFI, this is the BIOS. Acceptable PCI Gen 5 temperatures. 60 watt power delivery over Type-C front panel header. Tool free. Okay, so basically inherited all the stuff that MSI did for X870 originally. Negatives. Expensive. It's a $700 motherboard. I knew it was going to be $700 because I told you guys the Ace, the Crosshair, the Extreme from Aorus, they all compete in the same category. They're all that $700. They used to be $500 tier. Then Asus and MSI decided to go from $500 to $700. Gigabyte didn't do that. Gigabyte, the Master, used to compete with the Hero and this Ace. But when those two guys went to $700, Gigabyte was like, well, we don't need to change anything. It's like those guys now compete with the Extreme, the Aorus Extreme, because that was a $700 Gigabyte board. So those two moved up the stack. Gigabyte didn't do anything, which is good on Gigabyte's part, because who wants motherboards to become more expensive? You know, it's not like you're getting anything more than you were when you bought the $500 motherboard 2 years ago or whatever. So, all right, so expensive. That's negative, definitely negative. I don't like how these motherboards were $700, but at least this one has 10 gig LAN. VRM temperatures are a little disappointing. Both PCIe Gen 5 M.2s share bandwidth with, so this one, the thing about Ace loves PCI bandwidth sharing. So if you hate PCI bandwidth sharing, this is not the motherboard for you. This is not the motherboard for you if you don't like the idea of PCIe lane sharing, bandwidth sharing. Because this motherboard does it a lot. It loves bandwidth sharing. Plug something in. Okay, take bandwidth from this other thing. Plug this thing down here. Okay, take bandwidth from your Windows drive. You know, it's like, that's how it works. Access to rear M.2 port may record. Yeah, this is the thing I don't like. I don't like the fifth M.2 being on the back. That's like the one negative thing that I noticed. 64 meg BIOS. Yeah, that's... How can you say this is a negative? This shouldn't be a negative just because it's limited benefits for now. How is this a negative? That shouldn't even be there. Ignore that. That's noise. Large RGB display may compromise VRM cooling. That's like telling somebody the car comes with a spare tire, but you might not need it right now. How is that a negative? Anyway, GPU obstructs lower M.2 heatsink and 3... okay, but I think pretty much every motherboard does this most of the time, so I don't know why that's a negative. Base clock, overclock. So none of these are deal breakers. EFI has 1 or 2 quick. Okay, I know what they're talking about. Yeah, MSI's initial boot is kind of weird. it brings you to the black screen with like, oh, FTPM, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like it automatically runs some script that then skips over it and then gets you into this weird overclock menu that no one really wants to use because they first want to verify everything works. So that's what they mean by EFI has one or two quirks. Software is clunky compared to competition. I wouldn't know because I never install the motherboard software on Windows. I don't know. I never install Armory Crate. I think I used it like one time a decade ago and then didn't really like it and then just uninstalled it and never used it ever again. Same thing with Gigabyte. I don't use the Aorus thing. I don't use the ASRock thing. I don't even know if I ever try the Gigabyte one ever. But I basically what I do when I build a new computer, I go in the BIOS and the first thing I do is I disable the thing in the BIOS that automatically prompts you to install their software on the first boot into Windows. Because technically that's kind of a security vulnerability. So it's like, I don't even understand why no one's brought this up as a thing. But I get why they do it because a lot of average consumers, a lot of gamers don't know anything about computers or they don't know that much about computers. So they would actually prefer to the hand holding where it tells them like, do you want to install these driver updates, these chipset updates or whatever. You know, like, they might actually prefer that stuff instead of doing it all manually. So, but anyway, they're saying that that's a negative. Okay. I think it's an okay motherboard. Let's see what they say. Let's see. For competition, let's see how it compares. Or actually, let's see how it compares to its should I read this whole thing? Let's just read the whole thing. Overall, the MSI Meg X870E Ace Max, what a name, delivers in the same way every other Meg Ace board has for both Intel and AMD platforms. It looks and feels like it's worth a sizable amount of cash. It's dripping with features that will appeal to practically every type of enthusiast. And many of these are high-end or result in a greater degree of future-proofing compared to cheaper options. What stands out the most is how customizable and flexible it is, whether you're building for air or water. Want to spend weekends fine-tuning your cooling system. Okay, that right there, that statement literally is talking directly to PC enthusiasts because only PC enthusiasts do this. Gamers don't do this. Average gamers do not spend their weekend fine-tuning the cooling system of the computer or have a board that has the features and hardware for overclocking. That's what we have come to expect from the Ace. And it ticks all those boxes. All right, the price means that you're spending $200 to $300 more than you need to if you're just using one or two SSDs. And I don't know who's going to buy a motherboard like this and only use one SSD. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would think that someone who's going to spend this much money on a motherboard is going to max out, at least they're going to run 3, if not 4 NVMe drives within the first 6 months of ownership. If it was me, I'm maxing out all 5 of them day one. Like, instantly max them all out. All those SSDs. Max everything out. Even the SATA ports. Everything. Max everything. Max it out. Multi-GPU. Put capture cards in there. Hook up external capture cards on USB 4. Max it out. But that's a true enthusiast. That's a true power user. Use that 10 gig NIC. You know what I'm saying? Like, use everything. Except the Wi-Fi 7. I'm not going to use the Wi-Fi 7. That's something I will not use. So that I don't care. But, I mean, sometimes you got to check the box. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to check off that Wi-Fi 7 because we got Wi-Fi 7 because everyone else got Wi-Fi 7. All right, there are, even though most enthusiasts aren't going to use Wi-Fi 7, there are extras you get here, though. Okay, 10 gig Ethernet. An abundance of high-speed Type A and Type C. 60-watt power delivery over your case's Type C, assuming your case supports that. We're still looking at compromise when adding a lot of high-end components into the equation, though, and while the board can support 2 Gen 5 SSDs and indeed cool them both effectively at the same time using either slot, results in compromise elsewhere, either disabling the USB 4. Okay, that's if you want it to run at full speed, though. Yeah, you can disable the USB 4. I don't recommend doing that. Or the third bottom slot. If I can see myself doing this if I never plan. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. If I install 2 graphics cards in the system, the second GPU is going to cover up the third slot. So I'll never be able to use the third slot. So I could see myself disabling the third slot and just running one of those Gen 5 SSDs at full bandwidth, because I'll never use this if I'm running multi-GPU. The USB 4, I will never disable USB 4. That is like so good to have. That is so good to have. The USB 4 is more valuable than the Gen 5 SSD slot in my mind. But someone else might have different priorities. This is more of a platform limitation, but no, it's more of MSI coming up with an interesting way to work around the bandwidth lanes to basically get more functionality out of the CPU PCIe Gen 5 lanes. Compared to its predecessor, and it's crazy to think that the Meg X670E Ace was launched 3.5 years ago. Yeah, that's right, 2022. There are clear advantages offered by... It'll be 4 years later this fall. Wow. There's Wi-Fi 7 instead of Wi-Fi 6E. There's USB 4, dual Ethernet ports, tool-free... Okay, so it's better than the original. It offers more stuff than the original. But it's not EATX. The older board was EATX for that wide stance. Because he's like... I like how he writes this. Sure, there's none of that older board's EATX swagger. Yeah, because EATX is more impressive. You know what I'm saying? You want to show off a build, like the real deal build? EATX is where it's at. EATX is way more impressive. It presents better. It just looks substantial. It looks like a big hunk of motherboard. You know what I'm saying? EATX, man. You want to show off a build to some other gamers and make them feel small and insignificant? You show them your EATX motherboard. That's what it's all about. But the new revision definitely steps things up a little in a range of areas, despite its power delivery being not quite as lavish. Okay, now let's talk about the competition. Even in MSI's own ranks, there are options that still sit above the more basic choices. The MPG X870E Carbon Max Wi-Fi, which we're expecting to hit shelves soon at around $500. Oh, they're coming out with a revised Carbon. Oh, okay. I bet I know what they're going to do there. More bandwidth sharing. That's what I'm talking about. Is $200, because the Carbon was one of the few MSI boards that didn't do the crazy, insane lane sharing shenanigans that MSI put on the Tomahawk and the Godlike and now the Ace. And I'm assuming the Carbon Max is going to inherit that. And it has a lot of the same features. You get... Okay. So you lose 10 gig on the Carbon, but basically everything else is the same. Gigabyte has a few alternatives with the excellent Aorus Pro X3D. Ice also retailing. Yeah, that thing has that's good, man. Gigabyte redeemed itself. You want a good motherboard at a good price? Go look at anything Aorus X3D. That's the key words. Aorus plus X3D. Anything Aorus X3D is automatically good. Very, very good. Any Aorus that doesn't say X3D is not good. Those are Gigabyte's like worst motherboards that they've released in years. But they redeem themselves by making a new revision and then slapping X3D everywhere and calling it a day. And yeah, anything Aorus X3D is really, really good. Trust me, real good. So that's some tough competition because Gigabyte's doing really good stuff. Because it's got dual PCIe Gen 5 M.2 because it copied MSI with the lane sharing. And even managed to offer 65-watt front panel power delivery plus better VRM and SSD cooling. Yeah, Gigabyte has the best SSD Gen 5 cooling. Thickest heatsink, most surface area. It's got the most cutout grooves. It's not some big chunk of metal like what Asus gives you. No, this thing is finned for surface area. I've tested all of them. Gigabyte, hands down, obliterates everyone else when it comes to cooling a Gen 5 SSD under full direct storage load. So these guys know, man. These guys know. He knows what he's talking about. Better VRM and SSD cooling from Gigabyte. Dialing things up a notch. The X870E Aorus Master X3D Ice offers more of the same, but squares up a little better to the Ace with 10 gig LAN and a stunning white design while still costing $100 less. Asus also has alternatives such as the Crosshair Dark Hero, which costs the same, although ironically, while excellent, it also suffers from the same issues as the Ace with lackluster VRM and SSD. Yeah, I told you guys, Asus SSD temperatures are not good. Given the choice, yeah, that's the one thing. That's the one thing I don't like about the Crosshair. Lousy Gen 5 cooling. Given the choice of the two, we'd likely opt for... I don't care about the VRM. The VRM's whatever. But the SSD, yeah. Given the choice of the two, we'd likely opt for Asus thanks to the slight edge in EFI and software. But there are other options such as ROG, Crosshair, Apex. But Apex is completely different, though. I don't know. Apex is like a 2DIMM motherboard. And it's a really good board, but it's very niche. So I don't know about that. I feel like that's not even worth mentioning. It's really the Dark Hero and the Aorus Master X3D. Those are the real competitors. Ultimately expecting a refresh motherboard, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So it's pretty good. Highly recommended, but expensive. Yeah, I would agree. It's a good board. If you're considering a brand new AM5 build in 2026 and you're someone who wants a premium motherboard, definitely check out the Ace Max. I think it's pretty good from what I've seen, what I've read about. As someone who uses the Godlike, we're literally streaming on the MSI Godlike right now. Now, the Godlike had some issues with the display thing, but the motherboard itself has been solid. I've had no problems with the motherboard, like any of the USB ports, the PCIe slots, the PBO settings, all that stuff, VSOC, whatever. MSI, the BIOS has been solid. The thing I don't like was the dynamic dashboard. I had to RMA that. But again, if you're considering the Ace, you don't have to worry about the dynamic dashboard because it doesn't have that. So it simplifies things. So it's a good board. I think if you're someone who likes the Samsung Evo 990, this is the perfect motherboard because it can literally use two of those to the full potential of that SSD. The big challenge is the price of SSDs right now. But yeah, overall, I think it's a good board. What do you guys think? Who here is on AM5 right now? And post your motherboard in the comments in the chat. I'm curious to know what you guys are using. If you're on AM5, if you're on Z890, also let us know what motherboard you have, because Z890 and X870E are of the same era. They're both the most current generation motherboards. You're on AM5. Hero, Edge TI. Wow, that's an MSI board. Gigabyte Aorus Master. Oh, that's the OG. Yeah, Fake Frame's got the OG. I've got the same board. That's in my home NAS. I think we talked about this, but yeah, X870 Aorus Master is good, man. That's like a top tier board. X870 Tomahawk. Oh, hey, Hades. I haven't seen Hades in a while. Hades is in the chat. Wow. Tomahawk. And you got the newer Tomahawk, because Tomahawk, when Tomahawk launched, they didn't have the E version at first. It came later. I think it was like 6 months after the initial launch. That's why I didn't have it in the tier list video. Because I got so many comments like, what about the X870E Tomahawk? What about the X870? I literally probably I've lost count of how many times people posted comments in my tier list video asking, what about the X870E Tomahawk? It falls into the same bracket as the, it's like, it falls into that, the same bracket that the Godlike falls into. AM5 to motherboard Tomahawk, and Mark has both. You got both Tomahawks. You got the single one and the dual. You know the difference between those two Tomahawks? The difference is this. If your motherboard is X870, it only has one of these chipsets. If it's X870E, it has two of these. That is the difference. So you get more connectivity. Basically, if you have an X870E, you have 4 more Gen 4 lanes and 4 more Gen 3 lanes. Everything else is the same. Because both X870 and X870E, they both have 24 Gen 5 CPU lanes. And they both have the second chipset's lane count. 8 Gen 4 and 4 Gen 3. The only thing that the E adds is 4 more Gen 4 and 4 more Gen 3. So you can basically summarize it and say the E adds 8 more PCIe lanes. Half of them are Gen 4, the other half are Gen 3. That's literally the only difference. And you know me, I'm all about connectivity. But the other thing too that I'm all about is enthusiast stuff. And most of the enthusiast features for overclockers are going to be in the more expensive motherboards. So naturally, I'm going to gravitate to the X870E for that reason. If somebody wanted to make a Crosshair Hero style motherboard that was X870 and was cheaper as a result of that, then yeah, I'd probably get something like that. But unfortunately, the enthusiasts are kind of forced into paying for these higher end boards, for these higher end features, just because that's the way that the manufacturer positioned them. Yeah, it was after, because the launch was like August of 2024. Cezanne on current sales. Cezanne? Wait, what? Why are we talking about Cezanne? That is so random. AMD current sales preview on AMD Intel side 27K. Intel makes 6x over cost on. Wait, what? The cost of the 270X is less than 6 times its actual MSRP. It's like $300. What? Isn't this fabricated by TSMC? How are they going to be making 6X? They have to be paying for the wafers. The margins on the 270K can't be that good. They cannot be that good compared to 14th gen. Because they're having to buy wafers. Unless buying those wafers is cheaper than running their fab. Like, I don't know. Maybe. I never thought of it that way. You know? The fab is more of like an OpEx budget, and the buying wafers from TSMC is more of a CapEx. So I don't know. It's CapEx versus OpEx. Are you serious? You're telling me TSMC charges $50 per chip? You're telling me the COGS? Well, no, it's probably less than 50. How is that possible? The COGS is $50? Well, hold on a second. Wait a minute. What? This is weird. I don't know if we want to go into this type of discussion on this episode of Tech Thursdays, but This, so you're basically saying the Intel Core Ultra 7 27K Plus has a MSRP of $299. Is that right? You're saying that the COGS is $50? What? You told me 6x. 6x. So how do we find COGS, guys? How do you compute the COGS? If you're saying that it's if Intel's selling at 6x, so you would take $300 divided by 6. Say we're doing $300. I'm rounding up to 300. Divided by 6, that equals $50. Is that right? That implies COGS is $50. You're saying it's $50? It costs Intel $50 to make a Core Ultra 7 27K Plus. Guys, this is why I'm not worried about Intel. All these people that are worrying about Intel, saying that they're going to disappear, these people are so out of touch with reality, I have no idea how any of this stuff works. Intel is doing totally fine. In fact, I'm actually a little bit more concerned about AMD's future than Intel's future. Because, first of all, Intel, for whatever reason, the US government believes that Intel is some kind of national treasure or something, even though AMD is also an American company that makes CPUs and competes in the exact same markets. So, yet somehow Intel gets free bailout money from the US government for some reason to stay afloat. I don't understand why. So they're not going away, you know? And if what Mike is saying is true, that they're making like 6 times the amount of their COGS for every Core Ultra, dude, I'm not worried about this company at all. All these people saying that their GPU needs work. Yeah, the GPU needs work. That doesn't mean they're going to go out of business just because their GPU needs work. Yeah, there's no problem, guys. Intel has no issues. Like, all these people who keep saying, like, Intel's in trouble. No, they're not. These people don't understand how the industry works. Every time I hear someone say, Intel's doomed, it's all downhill from here, blah, blah, blah. Dude, no. They don't know what they're talking about. They're totally fine. And this proves that they're totally fine. Alright, so let's move on. This is an interesting little sidebar conversation, I will say that. That was interesting. Okay. This article, I know this was from last week. And I know this is definitely fake news because this is an April Fool's Day joke. But this was actually, did anybody read this and think like, what the heck? Like, this thing about FSR 5 Scarlet Cortex, like, did anybody read this and was like, whoa, dude, this is like the big brain April Fool's Day joke of the decade or something. Like, I thought it was entertaining. Because there's actually some truth in the sense, like, these are kind of the things that AMD needs to do. Like, these are the sort of things that are kind of, it kind of points to the public perception of, like, how, sort of the things that AMD should prioritize, I guess. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's funny because the redstone thing for Crimson Desert, uh I don't know when we're gonna get another game like that. Does anybody know what's the next game that's gonna implement the full redstone functionality? I don't know. Let's move on. What else was I supposed to talk about? I don't even know what I'm supposed to talk about. Oh yeah, Ryzen AI Max. Okay, let's go find that Ryzen AI Max thing. Uh, there was a Corsair, or was it this one? Thermalright launches. Thermalright launches an AI Hydro Naus Noose R1 featuring water cooled Ryzen AI Max Plus 395 based mini PC. A water cooled mini PC. What is this? 176 watts. What? Wait, what? This is the potential. This is called unlocking the potential. What? This is basically what happens when you blast power through a mobile chip that has so many cores for a mobile chip and LPDDR5X memory. Is it just me, or all the like mini PCs that are so interesting coming out of the Chinese or Taiwanese market? Because dude, like Minis Forum is doing really good stuff right now. They probably have my favorite one. Oh, framework is good too, but in terms of the mini PC market, maybe this is where the industry is going. Maybe in the future, no one's gonna build their own computer desktops anymore. You're just gonna buy mini PCs, and the mini PCs will run different platforms like Sony PlayStation platform or Linux based Steam OS or whatever, and that's probably where we're going, because it does seem like with the way things are with components becoming more and more expensive, they're slowly pushing people away from building PCs. You know what I'm saying? It feels like it feels like you it feels like, the way I see it is, if the prices of these components remain high and they only get higher, it's going to discourage people from trying to take up building PCs as a hobby, because they're going to get priced out of the market, and they're going to be demoralized from doing it, so they're going to instead go and buy a pre-build, and the pre-build could eventually consolidate down to a mini PC solution, like a box-based solution, almost like buying a console. Because right now you can buy a pre-build, which is still basically a custom-built PC with limited scope of components you can choose from, but it's still mostly the same as building it yourself. This is the next level. Like this is where that the scale of that gets out of control. Meaning, first, it becomes less and less affordable for individual consumers to build their own PCs. So then the next stage, the next phase will be boutique system builders, system integrators, like CyberPower PC or Falcon Northwest, or those type of, not Falcon Northwest, Main Gear. Uh, those type of companies are gonna go out of, well, they're gonna have a harder time sourcing the parts, because the bulk pricing to them gets less and less attractive, to the point where maybe mini PCs become the thing, and they'll just resell these because they'll bulk purchase these, or something like that. They'll offer like a warranty support thing, and they'll sell the warranty with it as a package deal, so they can make money selling services, like post-sale services. So that would be the thing. That it's kind of a slippery slope to talk about this, because things could revert back to the way they were. It's just, I don't know when that's going to happen because the AI stuff is not going away. The AI use cases are becoming more mature. They're becoming more, um, they're manifesting in the things that actually are tangible and usable. I'm not talking about chatbots. I'm not talking about image generators. When I'm talking about AI, that's not what I'm talking about. I know when people hear AI mentioned, those are the things that they immediately think of, but that's not what I'm talking about. Those things are already a done deal. I'm talking about using AI for robotics, using AI for self driving cars, autonomous vehicles, self driving trucks, 18 wheelers, moving a semi with the driver in the seat but not actively driving because the AI and the system control is all doing everything. These are things that AI is accelerating. The other parts are, like helping proofread code, helping develop, better predictions for disease, like predicting cancer growth, different models, looking at different ways that a cancer could progress, looking at different drug discoveries, finding patterns in protein and enzymes, and how mutations can fester from certain changes in DNA sequencing, how DNA reacts from radiation damage. These are the sort of things that AI is accelerating. These are the things that if you attended GTC, these are the sort of things that you would have seen on the show floor. No one there was talking about ChatGPT or Grok or OpenAI this, that, or image generators and stealing artists' work and all those controversial things, and the data center sucking up all the electricity and the water, which is what we've talked about before. So this is where I see the market shifting. And from what I've heard, and I already have like firsthand knowledge from people in the supply chain side that have told me directly that the memory prices are not going to go down in the near term. They're only going to go up. They've just slowed the ramp in price increases because they don't want to face public backlash if they raise them again so quickly. So they're going to raise them in these step increments that are less noticeable to the public eye. But if you take a snapshot of how much DDR5 costs right now, and you look at how much it cost in December and how much it cost last July, and just save where it is priced at today, then look at it in July of this year and see what it looks like. Then look at it in October of this year and see what it looks like. And then tell me if it's going back to normal. Because I don't see it going back to normal in the near term, based off everything that I have seen and heard from the industry. So, yeah, all this stuff with AI is only going to keep on. It's going to keep on trucking along, business as usual. So, we could end up in a world where mini PCs are literally the only option because they feel like this is the sort of thing that consumers want. Or it could be even worse. It could turn into a world where gaming is literally just cloud-based streaming. That would be awful. Basically turning the entire industry into Netflix. Now, I don't see that happening in the next 5 to 10 years, mainly because of internet infrastructure is kind of the bottleneck there, more than anything else. But I kind of think this is where things are slowly going. It just seems that more and more signs are on the wall. The writing is on the wall. I mean, we were having a discussion about the consoles recently, like what justifies the PlayStation 6 I mean, the same question can be asked: what justifies upgrading? What justifies upgrading the graphics card? You know, if there's this stagnation in the industry where nothing seems to improve, and there seems to be no incentive to change, to make a generational uplift in terms of the silicon for the consumer's use cases. So like gaming and normal applications, then what happens? You know what I mean? So I don't know. Most of the discrete market is technically pre-built. So I would like to know if anyone knows. Maybe Mike knows, if Mike is still around. Like, if you're still watching the stream, do you know what percentage of the discrete GPU market is pre-built versus like single sold through a reseller? So like, for example, how many GeForce graphics cards were sold at an individual level versus how many were sold to Lenovo, Dell, HP, and then okay, so we have 3 categories. I don't know if anybody can answer this question. It'd be interesting to know this info. So like, for all the GeForce GPUs sold globally, because we look at this at a global level, because most of these GPUs are actually in China, for those that were curious. Most GeForce GPUs are in China. But if we look at the categories, you have pre-built, OEM. You have pre-built, SI. And you have consumer. Or I guess you can do retail? Sold to retailer. Sold to retailer. Because this is coming through. I don't know. I think Mike may have left. But this would be interesting to know. Because pre-built OEM is basically Legion, Alienware, Omen. You know, like the big bulk sellers. Lenovo, Dell, HP. These are the OEM. So what share of these GPUs go to those guys? I'm pretty sure most of them go to these guys. I think these guys have the largest pie. Then SI would be like CyberPower PC or Main Gear. You know, like, what's another one? It's those type of companies that build custom PCs the same way someone like myself would build them, and then they just sell it to an end user. These are SI. These are not OEM. Meaning these guys, sometimes they might negotiate like a branded version of a case or something. But most of the time, these guys are still, they're sourcing from like what is sold into the market. Like, these guys are using typical Asus motherboards or Gigabyte motherboards or whatever. These guys are not using ROG or Aorus or Godlike. They're not going to do. These guys will sell you a PC with a Godlike. These guys aren't going to sell you a PC with a Godlike. But I'm guessing these guys are selling the vast majority. They're getting the majority of the GPUs. And then the retailer is going to be like the PC DIY. Basically, the PC enthusiasts who build the computer as a hobby. So PC DIY, hobbyist, etc. So that's the final category. And I have a feeling this is the smallest chunk of the pie. I'm pretty sure these two command much, much more market share than individual seller or individual direct-to-consumer sales through the retail channel. Because I've lost count of how many times I have had to actively convince people I know to not buy a pre-build. And it is not an easy thing to do because they always want to hit the easy button. And the easy button is to have someone else do it for you. Go get a pre-build. You might screw something up. You don't have to learn how to apply thermal paste. You get a warranty. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is. They'll ship it straight to your house. You don't have to do anything. Just get an Omen. Just get a Legion. So this is, I'm pretty sure these guys have the big chunk of the pie. So, yeah, but you do realize what I'm saying, right? 44 million, you're saying 44 million units worldwide. I'm pretty sure more than 50% of that 44 million fell into this category. Fell into this category, not PC hobbyists, PC DIY. So you do realize when Jensen says that discrete GPU is not going away, he's more referring to OEM and SI. Yeah, I know. I never said discrete GPU is going away. So what I'm saying is the form factor can change. We've already seen this play out with other types of technology. Surprising how lots of people think they way too complicated. It's a big... Yeah, most people do that. That's human nature. Human nature is to follow the path of least resistance. Like all things in nature, humans are no different. They're going to flow toward the path of least resistance. It is by nature that they'll just do that. It's natural. So if you're unfamiliar with something... Dude, we've had this conversation. The best example I can give someone is... let's just use one right now. If you have a car, you should change your own brake pads. Change your own brake pads. It's your car. Change your brake pads. Change your engine oil. Would you rather change your brake pads, or would you rather go to someone else to do it for you? Now, someone who is familiar with changing brake pads, they'll change the brake pads. But if they're not familiar with changing the brake pads, they're probably going to pay someone else to change the brake pads for them. This is the exact same concept. So this is the thing, guys. Like, it's the same exact thing. It's like there could be a car mechanic who has never built a computer before, but they can change brake pads, like clockwork, like it's second nature. They don't even need to think about it. They're just going through the muscle memory. But they might not know, like what's the correct way to apply the thermal paste on a CPU. You know what I'm saying? So that's the reason why these sort of things, because this type of thing is more like, it's almost, I don't want to say it's skilled labor, but technically it is a form of skilled labor. You know what I mean? A better example of skilled labor is someone who knows how to repair 12-volt high power burnt up connectors on a 50 series graphics card. Like, how many people know how to replace the melted connector on a 5090? Not a lot of people have the skilled labor, the tools, the experience, how to use flux to desolder things without burning up the PCB in the surrounding area, without damaging the layers. Like, not a lot of people have the experience doing that. They might watch some guy do it on YouTube or something, but most people are not going to feel confident enough just from watching one YouTube video on how to do it to go and buy all the parts and then try to do it themselves and not screw it up. You know what I'm saying? So these are the kind of things that it's like the PC DIY is really more like skilled labor. Building your own computer is it is a lesser form of skilled labor. Now, I might be underselling that skill, because to me, building a PC is easy. And if I have to desolder something, I know how to do it. I have a soldering iron. I don't have flux on me, but I could desolder without the flux, and it would look kind of messy, but I could do it. You know what I'm saying? So, but the average gamer, the average person who just wants to play Fortnite or whatever, do you really think that they care to know how to do all this stuff, or do they even desire to do all these things? Most of them don't. Most people don't do that. So this is the thing. Like the average person who plays games, they don't care about building the actual computer. I've come across lots of people who play computer games, and I would say out of all the people that I've come across that play various different computer games, first person shooters, MMOs, MOBAs, battle royales, whatever, like all kinds of gamers, probably only 5 to 10%, we'll say maybe 1 out of 10 of them has any interest in actually building a PC. The other 9, they'd rather buy a pre-built and not even be bothered. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how it is. I don't know. That's just the reality. So this is the reason why, if there's a shift in the market due to whatever factor, it doesn't have to be AI, it doesn't have to be the RAM, just things change over time. Look at what happened to VHS, look what happened to CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, physical media, how it all kind of shrunk down into streaming media over various different streaming services. And people seem to be okay with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, the industry changed. Changes like this happen all the time. It's a natural progression or regression, depending on who you ask. But the vast majority of the consumers who consume the media, in this case games, they're not really going to be bothered if there is a shift where they push streaming platforms like GeForce Now or PlayStation Now or Xbox Everywhere, including cloud streamed from Xbox. They're not super bothered by that. It hasn't really clicked for them that it's another form of them not owning anything. But most people that are downloading games digitally these days anyway, they're desensitized to the idea of not truly owning something because there's no physical. It's kind of weird. It's a strange phenomenon when you have the physical media and it's yours versus like, oh, you purchased a right to use license key from Steam or somebody, and you're still at the mercy of downloading the game from their server and having to download the updates from a server somewhere. You know what I mean? So we can open up a whole nother can of worms about live service games and how live service games truly are. You will own nothing and you will be happy. Basically, every single MMO in existence, as far back before World of Warcraft, even. So, and that was back when WoW was still selling physical CDs to install the game, and you had CD keys printed on the physical box, so you could bind your Burning Crusade expansion to your Blizzard account. You know what I'm saying? That was when they were using physical based license keys back in the day. I don't know if anyone does it anymore. Everyone's moved to like some kind of smart licensing system now, which is basically how Steam handles all of their game distribution. They want everyone to pay for subscription. It's because of cash flow, man. It's always companies are always going to try to improve their cash flow. That's just the nature of how business works. All right, well, I didn't really plan on talking too much about this. We've talked about this stuff in the past, and it's really no different from what we've said before. You have 3, maybe 4 categories for the PC gaming market, and the lion's share is definitely not the individual consumer. It's resellers, system integrators, or large-scale OEMs that have bulk contract agreements And they're getting these guys get certain discount percentages too. These guys get way better discounts than these guys, I can tell you that. But they're also the bulk of the numbers. So that's why. The more you buy, the more you save. That's just how it works. Okay, let's move on. Let's discuss now the final thing. This came out yesterday. AMD's mighty Ryzen 9 9950X3D. Oh. AMD's mighty Ryzen 9 9950X3D2, which everyone seems to call it the D2. I don't know, that's becoming the nickname for the CPU, the D2. Are you going to get the D2? I asked Micro Center when I was there exchanging that B70, and I asked them, are you guys going to have the new Ryzen? And before I could finish the sentence, one of them immediately said, the D2? The D2? I'm like, yeah, the D2, yeah. Are you guys going to have the D2? And they're like, yeah, we will have it on launch day. So it looks like it will launch at $900 US, or as Digital Foundry says, 900 US units. I don't know why Rich calls it 900 US units. Units? What? And that alone should keep gamers away. Oh man. See, this headline further reinforces what we were just talking about, where it's like you just keep on ramping up the price, where you basically push the PC DIY, you just shove them further and further out of the market because you put things more and more out of reach. Because you just keep charging more, man. Just keep charging more. Just see what you can get away with. NVIDIA has been playing this game for almost a decade now. You know, for the longest time, GPU pricing, the highest end GPU for consumer capped out around $600. Then after a while it became $700. And then $750. But then it didn't really go up that much after that. Then all of a sudden, it all began with RTX. RTX, $1,200. All of a sudden, $1,200, RTX 2080 Ti. 2080 Ti. So, man, when they did that, they set a new bar, $1,200 for a non-Titan, for basically the Ti, the 80 class Ti, because the 1080 Ti was $700. All of a sudden, $1,200 for the 2080 Ti. That was a massive jump. $500 increase in price. And then they did $1,500 3090, $2,000 3090 Ti. So it's, yeah, just keep creeping it up. You know, give whatever excuse. Silicon's more expensive, blah, blah, blah. Node shrinks are harder. Memory comes at a premium. Whatever the insert excuse. Make that the narrative. Push it out. The gamers will either agree or disagree. It doesn't matter what they think anyway. They'll just buy it up anyway. This has been the NVIDIA way for a long time now. So it's like, okay, now let's do it with CPUs. Ryzen 9 D2 launching with $900 MSRP. I don't know why it says that alone should keep gamers away. I don't know if it's going to keep gamers away. Okay, yeah. It is going to keep a lot of gamers away. $900 MSRP for just a CPU. That's going to keep gamers away. Quite a few of them. But you're always going to have those enthusiasts that will end up buying this anyway. You know what I'm saying? So AMD's Ryzen 9 D2 offers dual cache tiles up to 200 watt TDP, but the pricing isn't worth it for the gamers at all. This makes me wonder, like, what is the Nova Lake going to... I immediately saw this and I'm like, whoa, dude. What is going to happen with Nova Lake? Because Nova Lake can do this too. It's like, what? Okay, because Nova Lake's going to charge for that big 52 core. Oh, man. This is going to be the year of the CPU price hikes. This is the year of the CPU price hikes. Oh, man. That TSMC node... Whatever. Okay, so here it is. Offers dual cache, blah, blah, blah. Team Red's newest X3D processors weren't just a leap in core configurations. Rather, the firm introduced a massive design revision, which marks the first AMD has adopted a dual cache tile strategy. We'll talk about the specifications. According to AMD's David McAfee, okay, it came from him. Hold on, let's see the Twitter post. The world's first dual 3D V-Cache technology desktop processor, dual edition processor, available April 22nd, $899. Workstation class performance meets the AEM5 platform. No new motherboard or memory required. Built for developers. Okay, hold on. There's an asterisk. He should have put an asterisk here. So it is true. It is true that it doesn't need a BIOS update or a new motherboard. However, the motherboard BIOS needs to be of a certain revision. Doesn't have to be the latest one. So if you are planning to get this motherboard, you are going to want to look on the product page for your motherboard to find out how far back is this CPU supported. From what I understand, certain motherboards, like the Ace Max from MSI, the day one BIOS that the Max ships with will support the D2 because that motherboard is so new. Same exact thing should apply to the Dark Hero. Now, he's saying built for developers and content creators. But see, I don't like when they say these things, built for developers and content creators, because this is driving the gamers into like a lower tier classification. You know what I mean? Because to me, this is changing things up in a bad way. Because I've already experienced the advantages of having the Ryzen 9 for gaming over the Ryzen 7. The reason why I don't like the Ryzen 7 is because 8 core, 16 thread doesn't seem like a lot of cores. And for gaming, yeah, it's enough cores, but compiling shaders, it's really not enough for compiling shaders. And with every single game nowadays requiring compiling shaders, there's a big difference in terms of shader compile times between a Ryzen 9 and a Ryzen 7. And that's another thing that actually makes Intel look good compared to AMD. This is why I don't like this idea of saying, oh, this is not a gamer CPU. Because this one actually compiles games fast. The 9800X3 does not compile games fast because it's only 8 cores. And that's another thing that Intel looks good at compared to the 9800X3D. Because Intel's got all those extra cores, and all those extra cores help compile the shaders. So Intel looks good on shader compile. AMD literally needs the Ryzen 9 to compete with Intel on those type of features. And I can tell you right now, there's going to be those random gamers that if someone tells them that the Intel compiles shaders faster, they're going to want to buy the Intel. Or if or it's like, oh, the Ryzen 9 compiles shaders faster than the Ryzen 7, but then you tell them it's $900 and they're going to be like, no, you know? So it's like, I don't like this. I don't like how they're like, oh, it's not for gamers. Because there are workloads that gamers benefit from with higher core and thread count, whether or not the gamers realize that. So I don't know. To me, I mean, Dragon's Dogma 2 shader compile, Monster Hunter Wild shader compile. Every time you install a new driver update, it has to recompile the shader. So some of these games, like, they're gonna take a while on an 8-core CPU. So this is the reason why I personally don't really like. Yeah, I'm gonna continue using a 9950X3D. I think 9950X3D is still probably gonna be the best one, overall, but I think the 9950X3D2, I noticed that they're showing a bunch of like workstation things. They're not showing gaming, which probably means that it doesn't actually improve gaming. So maybe, I don't know. This is kind of an interesting, like, what is this? It's almost like AMD is the only reason why AMD is launching this product is because everyone kept clamoring about it and asking for it, regardless of whether it actually benefits them in any noticeable, tangible way. So they're like, well, fine, let's just put it out there because everyone keeps asking for it. I feel like that's the reason why this thing exists. But I don't know, because it's not clear to me if this has some sort of scheduler. I don't think it does. I think it would need more time for AMD to develop something like Threadripper. So it's still at the mercy of the operating system to handle all the scheduling, which should be fine most of the time. I mean, from my experience, it's totally fine. But if you really want to benefit on X3D2, you're going to need... I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. The fact that they're not showing any gaming benchmarks kind of indicates that it's not going to improve the gaming performance over the 9950X3D. So, I don't know, man. I kind of think it's cool that they are actually launching it. I don't really know who it's for. At $900, I know why it's $900. It's $900 because they cannot go above a certain threshold, and you guys know the reason why that is. We've discussed this before. So, let's discuss the Ryzen 9 9950X. The 9950X, the Ryzen 9 9950X3D, and I guess the Ryzen 9 9900X3D, Ryzen 9 9900X. So these are the Ryzen 9s. AMD kind of has too many Ryzen 9s. They can't really fix this problem. It's just a problem that they have because they've got these two different types of processors. So they're going to release a Ryzen. So, okay, we already know the price now. So we guess we just put it in. There's this. What is the MSRP of this thing? I think it's $699 if I'm not mistaken. This is $899. This is, I don't remember, $599, $549, $649, $649. I think, I don't remember. And then this one is okay, maybe that one is $549 then. I don't remember. I don't remember the other three. But basically, the reason why this is $900 is because they cannot go above a certain threshold. Because there is this. There's Threadripper 9960X, which is $1499. And then it just goes up from there. In fact, there's another... Well, no, we're not going to talk about Threadripper Pro. So it's kind of like there's a ceiling. And I think AMD at $900... I'm surprised it's not $849, but I guess whatever. It's $900. So it's $200 more than 9950X3D. So is it worth the $200 more dollars? See, somewhere in here, the price makes sense, but it's weird because, okay, yeah, I guess what they're doing is they're staying under that line. They're staying under that threshold for PCIe lanes. Yeah. 9900X3D is $599. They're staying under the PCIe threshold. Don't you think that makes sense? Because you're doing so. This is what, 88 PCIe lanes or something? This is like 44, if I'm not mistaken. 44 PCIe lanes. Is that right? I don't know. Somewhere around there. You get 44 lanes versus 88 lanes. And a bunch of those PCIe lanes are oversubscribed chipset lanes on the AM5. So you're basically doubling your PCIe lanes. This is the reason why there's a big gap. This is why there's a big gap. And that's the reason why there's like a... That's why there's a limit on how much they can charge. It's good that they're not doing 999. I think if it was 999, it's too much. It doesn't look good. I think it would look better at 799 though. Cost today, price from TSMC to AMD. It's all X2. Cost today. What does that mean? It's all X2. I don't know what that means. Always new hardware comes at a high price for early adopter. Yeah, these CPUs do drop. Like, you can get the ones that have been on the market for a better deal. They go on sale frequently. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a lot of money. I keep thinking about how CPUs used to be only like $300 for the highest end SKU. I remember paying, you know, back when I got this CPU, I paid $280 for this CPU from Micro Center back in the day. Was it $280 or $250? I think it was $280. Yeah, $279. I paid $279 for a 4770K from Micro Center in 2013. Now, that's not the MSRP. The MSRP was like $349. But you know, Micro Center had those super aggressive deals back in the day. They do have good deals. They still have good deals, but they're not like that kind of crazy. Although I don't know, you know, that Intel Core Ultra 270K plus is kind of similar to this. But yeah, back in the day, that was how it was. It's like you would pay $300 or so for the best CPU you could get. Not accounting HEDT. I know there was HEDT, but look at where we're at now, man. $900? $900 for this? Like what? $900? Overclockers UK, they listed it at 829 pounds. Yeah, so that basically means Intel's okay. Yeah. Man, everything is so expensive now. Everything seems so expensive. I feel like this year is not the year to be building computers. It just seems like a no-go. Nothing in the gamer crowd is new. The only thing that we've seen are like workstation things. This definitely feels like an off year for building PCs. You know what I'm saying? Everything's expensive. Nothing's targeting gamers. Like, literally nothing's targeting gamers. So it's like, it's hard to be an enthusiast in these times, you know? Like, this is just how it is. It is what it is. I hate to use the saying it is what it is, but it is what it is. This is not the best time to be trying to build a computer. Like, custom built PC. Everything just seems so bad in terms of value. Like, I don't know. To me, $900 for the D2 does not seem like good value. It just seems like it's just riding that gravy train of, oh, let's just make everything more expensive because the excuse is the prices are going up because everything's so expensive, because everything's so hard to make. So we got to make the prices more expensive to justify. I don't. It's like insert whatever excuse. First there was the tariff excuse. Then there was the AI excuse. Well, then there was the other. There was the excuse for a while about TSMC just raising prices just because TSMC raised prices. And, you know, like that happened like 2 or 3 times. So then that was the excuse to raise everything. And then now there's the DRAM going up, raising whatever. So it's like, okay, yeah, just raise the prices arbitrarily, insert whatever excuse, and then it's kind of lame. It's really lame, to be honest. Like, you can imagine someone who's never built a PC before. You start telling them how much some of this stuff costs. That is a huge turnoff. That is a massive, like, it's that meme of that guy being like, you know, it's like, no, no thanks, no thanks, no thanks. Like, do something else, you know, like take up a different hobby, you know, like, I don't know. It just seems really bad time to be building computers. It's just, the way prices are. I guess if you already have a decent computer, or you're in like an old computer case or something, maybe upgrade the case, do like some kind of side project upgrade. You don't have to upgrade the actual components in the system itself. Yeah, maybe it's not a good year to be launching new CPUs. Although I'm pretty sure, I don't know, if Intel and AMD kind of are supposed to launch new CPUs later this year, although because of the way things are, everything just seems so unattractive right now in building computers. AMD just kind of throwing this D2 out there as like a whatever. And then Intel put the Core Ultra Plus things so that I feel like the only reason why Intel did that was so that Z890 doesn't go down in history as a one-socket platform. But technically, Arrow Lake is still Arrow Lake. Arrow Lake Plus is still Arrow Lake. So, I don't know. That just seems so bad. Z890, man. Z890 equals Arrow Lake, and that's basically it. There's like nothing else. Talk about dead platform. That platform, nobody cared about it. I liked it. No one else did except me. I'm like the one guy that said Z890, man, the best Intel platform in years. And then everybody, all the gamers ignored it. And then everyone else ignored it. Except the diehard Intels. The diehard Intel fanboys, I saw them in Micro Center trying to evangelize random customers on why they should buy Intel Core Ultra 7 270K plus. Because it's so good value, $300, so much multi-thread potential, so much multi-thread performance in gaming. There's literally one guy got on a soapbox saying how, why would you use an X3, like why would you buy a 9800 X3D? It costs more money and it's worse at gaming because the Intel shreds the compiling. It just dominates in the compiling. It loads the game so fast. Which is true. But then there was like fake stuff that he was saying, like the fast load times affect your SSD lifespan. And I'm thinking like, okay, pal, you're hallucinating like you're some kind of chat GPT right now. Because that's not how these things work. But okay, cool story, I guess. I mean, that's an interesting thing to come up with on the spot, you know? You got to have fast load times to prolong your SSD lifespan. Yeah, that's some left field random stuff. I don't know if he read that from some old chat GPT hallucination or what. Like Intel Ultra 7 Had a BIOS that created fake data with the benchmarks. Oh yeah, that was the whole like Geekbench thing. But you know what people said though? People said that's because Geekbench doesn't want anything to look better than Apple, even though it didn't even beat Apple. Like Geekbench basically accused Intel of cheating in the benchmarks, so it invalidated all of the Intel Plus CPU results. But it didn't actually win anything, so I don't know. I don't understand how that works. Like, how do you determine if it's a fake result or it's like cheating? It's all the same code executing. I don't know, man. It's like they're hacking the benchmark, like cheating in the benchmark somehow. Haswell started at the okay, yeah. But Haswell was a long lifespan. Haswell lived in two different market segments. See, here's the thing about the Haswell. Haswell lived in mainstream and in HEDT and in server. Arrow Lake literally lives. Okay, Arrow Lake well, Haswell also in mobile. Arrow Lake lived in mobile. There was a mobile variant, which is quite good, and there's the desktop one, which is not that good. And then there is nothing else. There's the refresh, which is only good because it's so cheap. Otherwise, it's not that good. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's only good because it's cheap. Just like how back in the day, AMD FX was only good because it was so cheap. You're like, $200 got you the best AMD FX 8350 on the planet. Yeah, and it was competitive with the i5, and it was competitive with i7 a little bit in multi-thread performance, but it was not competitive in the gaming performance. So it was cheaper than those because they targeted that demographic. Same thing is happening now, except it's literally the reverse of how it was in like 2013. Now you have Intel charging so cheap, so people are saying it's good because it's cheap, like how they're saying AMD was good because it was cheap. Now AMD is in the more dominant position that Intel was in over a decade ago, where AMD is the one charging $900 for the flagship D2, and all the other ones are also relatively pricey as well. So it's kind of strange. It's a weird world. HEDT, yeah, but Arrow Lake is not on HEDT. Arrow Lake's not on HEDT. You know what I mean? It's literally meant for mobile and desktop, and that's the end of the life of Arrow Lake. Like because Xeon lives long. You know what I mean? Like Haswell going in HEDT meant it live a long time. They kept that node going for a long time. Arrow Lake is mostly going to end up in laptops. The vast majority of people buying Arrow Lake are buying laptops. Does Mike know what is the percentage of mobile versus desktop? Because mobile is huge. Laptop, like, okay, if this is the pie chart, this is the laptops. This is like the desktop. So like laptop, Mike, you tell me if you know. This is laptop. This is desktop. Desktop. Laptop. So it's like laptops are the dominant one. Like, whoa, man. Laptops are way more. So, global markets. So this is the reason why I tell people, do not worry about Intel. Intel is not in any sort of trouble. Intel's not in any sort of trouble. Most corporate companies, like if you work for a company and they're gonna supply you a laptop, guess what processor's in the laptop? Because they're buying those on 3-year leases in bulk. You'd be lucky if it's an AMD one, but most of the time it's gonna be an Intel. So you have to factor that in too. All the Intel fan people thought Haswell was the best part they ever produced, especially in AMD. Alright. Because it's what they use. You're talking about a what? Well, no. What I'm interested in knowing is the laptop versus desktop share. You know what I'm saying? The thing is, the laptops they're competitive. Like AMD and Intel are kind of the same in laptops right now. The one difference is volume. Intel knows they need the wafers. They will spend on all the wafers to get the laptop volume where it needs to be. I don't know, AMD, I don't know what they prioritize. I guess they're prioritizing server, but AMD doesn't seem like they prioritize mobile. And I don't know what the crux of that problem is, because mobile is really where it's at in terms of volume, in terms of share. So, but Intel cannot afford to lose laptop. Like if AMD made a lot of market share in laptop, that would be that would be very, very impactful towards Intel in a negative way towards Intel. Like Intel would suffer badly if AMD took a large share out of laptop market. Now there's also ARM, and then of course we can't forget about Apple, which is the true bane of Intel's existence right now. Because if you work for a company, typically the company will give you a choice. You can either get a Mac or a Windows, and the Windows is usually Intel-based laptop. So you either get a Mac or an Intel-based Windows laptop. Those are the two choices. You cannot ask for an AMD laptop. You cannot ask for a Snapdragon laptop. They're not going to give it to you. They're only going to give you an Intel laptop or a Mac. So you choose Mac or you choose Intel, or you get fired and you don't work there anymore. You know, like that's how it works. So this is the corporate environment. No one ever talks about the corporate environment, but the corporate environment is a massive, massive chunk of this laptop market share. There's literally a bunch of businesses that all they do is buy up and resell a bunch of corporate business laptops that go off lease. And they just sell them secondhand. So laptops are the biggest percentage by far. So big. In fact, it might even be more than this. It might even be more like this. Like this might also be laptop, but I'm not sure. Because I'm thinking of corporations, businesses, they're going to be using laptops. They're not going to be using desktops for their employees. Because you're not going to be taking a desktop on an airplane to go to some kind of business meeting. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how the world works. 33 desktop and 66 mobile traditionally, but that is the commercial. Because it does change, and that average split is imprecise in any generation. Okay, so basically you're saying 1/3 desktop, 66% mobile. Okay, so that means it's a little bit more desktop than I was thinking. That's surprising, actually. Because I would think it's more like 75 laptop, 25% desktop. But you're talking commercial only, though. So what? Well, if it's not commercial, you're talking about what I was talking about. Because if you factor in non-commercial, so you're meaning like someone buying a Best Buy laptop. You know what I mean? What's the Mac market like, as they seem to product place them in lots of films and shows? Mac is mostly for consumer, but I'm surprised how they've been making inroads into commercial, into a lot of like businesses in the last 10 years. Mac has grown. Let's just say this, Mac is growing. Mac is not shrinking. Apple's brand continues to grow. Like, this is why they're considered so profitable, because they're growing and they're scaling well. So Apple's doing Apple things. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're just doing what they do. I am not concerned about Apple. I'm not concerned about Intel. Mac is killing it right now for anything besides gaming. They are kind of the value brand. The thing about Mac is so good is the battery life is so good, man. Mac battery life is amazing. The performance doesn't fall off when you're running it on battery. You get the exact same performance regardless whether you're on battery or hardwired to the wall. So it's like, that is huge. That is like a massive, massive advantage that Mac has over an x86 based laptop. So yeah, I understand why a lot of people switch. It also has terminal, so like if you're doing anything like IT related, because of, I think it's like the Unix background, the DNA of the early days of Mac, like it's inherited a lot of the Unix stuff. So it is good. It is actually quite good. Outside of gaming, it is very, you're right. You're right, man. And I always, people keep wanting me to switch to Mac. Like, everyone keeps saying, forget about Windows. Windows is so dumb. Like, why do you still use Windows? Why are you staying loyal to Windows? If they're not telling me to go to Mac, they're telling me to go to Linux. Everyone tells me, forget about Windows. Like, what do you need Windows for? Like, who needs Windows in 2026? And I'm thinking, man, if this guy, if he only knew what it means to be a PC gamer, he would understand. But this is not the way of the PC gamer. The way of the PC gamer is being loyal to Microsoft. You must worship Microsoft. This is the world of the PC gamer. Microsoft is the way. Microsoft is the truth. Windows PCs. Windows. You must be on Windows. Why do you need Linux? Why do you need Mac? Mac can't play games. Linux has bugs. Linux, you gotta type command line for every single little thing you gotta do. Like, why do I need to do this? It's 2026. Where's the CL? Why do I go CLI everything? Why do I have to CLI everything? Linux, Ubuntu, go away. Red Hat, go away. Fedora, I don't care. So it's like, if they keep telling me, man, they keep pushing me, go to Linux, do a server, don't use WSL, don't run Linux, don't run Windows. Windows is trash. Man, Windows has been around. First of all, these people that are advocating for Linux, do they realize Linux? I hope they're aware. I'm pretty sure they're aware. Microsoft Windows is the OG. Windows is older than Linux. Windows is the senpai. Windows is the elder. You cannot disrespect your elders. Linux cannot be disrespecting on Windows because Windows is the senior. Windows is the original. It's the older brother. It's the real deal. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is this? Linux this, Linux that. Kali Linux for everything. Everyone keeps telling me go Kali Linux. Why do I need to do Kali Linux? Like, what? How are you gonna game on Kali Linux? Like, Kali Linux is not meant for gaming. You know, like, okay, what Mint, Fedora, but Fedora isn't that like that's like Red Hat's freeware or whatever. And then there's of course the boatload of differences in the EULAs and the blah blah blah. Man, Linux is all over the place. Linux is all over the place. all the Linux distros. We've had this discussion before, but I feel like we weren't talking about this on Tech Thursdays before. We're doing this on a gaming live stream. Now we're talking about this out in the open. Linux, everyone keeps saying, go Linux, or go Mac, go Mac, go Mac, the battery life, go Mac, the battery life, the battery life, the battery life. It's like, I'm telling them, dude, I'm on Strix Point. I'm on, you know what my daily driver is? I'll tell you guys my daily driver laptop. It is this laptop. ThinkPad P16S Gen 4. AMD Ryzen 9 HX, or is it, yeah, HX Pro or Ryzen 9 Pro HX, yeah, Ryzen 9 Pro HX 370. This is literally better than every Intel mobile chip except for Panther Lake. This is the real deal. This beats Intel on battery life. This beats Intel in gaming performance on integrated graphics, except for Panther Lake, and even then it's still competitive with Panther Lake. So this is like the best laptop that you can get. This is what I call the secret chip. This is for the people that are in the know. Like, that's what I use. The real deal. 96 gigabyte SODIMM. What is it called? SODIMM DDR5. 2x 48 gig at 5600 mega transfers. This is what I personally use. So this is the laptop that I use every single day. And guess what? 90, is it 90 watt hour or 86 watt hour battery. So really good battery life. Exceptionally good laptop. This is what I call the secret Windows laptop. But you can still run Linux on it. This thing tries to compete with Mac. The thing is, a lot of people don't realize AMD Strix Point is so competitive with Apple. It can't win on battery life, but it can get relatively close. It still can't win. Like, Apple just dominates in battery life, regardless. But the crazy thing about this is this thing, if you unplug this and run it on battery, you only lose 15% of the performance. If you unplug Arrow Lake, an Intel mobile, the same exact laptop with Intel inside, you unplug, you're losing 25 to 35% of the performance if you run it on battery. So this is the reason why AMD is actually the better option if you're someone who is using it on battery a lot. But Mac is still going to be better. Mac is still going to beat AMD on battery life. Hands down. Like, literally the reason why I chose this laptop, number one, battery life. Number two, x86. Number three, I actually can upgrade the RAM to whatever SODIMM I want. It's not soldered RAM. So I'm not locked in. You know, I'm doing 96 gigs of RAM on a laptop in a market where RAM is like $1,000 plus for 96 gigs. So I think I'm doing something right. And big fat 86 watt hour battery, and the laptop's still relatively lightweight. It's good. This is the good stuff. This is like as good as it's going to get if you're on a Windows-based laptop trying to compete with a Mac. Mac is still going to win on battery life, though. Still going to win on battery life. But this is good. And the nice thing about this, you can literally game on this thing. You can game on this and you don't even need a discrete GPU. Now, you can get a laptop with a discrete GPU with this processor. We've covered that back during Black Friday. I showed you guys the HP Omen. It comes with HX 375, which is basically a golden sample of this CPU, with an RTX 5080 laptop GPU. So yeah, you can totally do that. And the nice thing about that is it gets that level of gaming performance while also getting super long battery life because of the Ryzen 9 HX 375. So yeah, there are the secret laptops that are like really, really good, but they're lesser known, like this. And then there's the mainstream stuff that you can find like everywhere. Yeah, so the Ryzen 8945HX. Oh, so that's isn't that Dragon Range? Is that Dragon Range? Yeah, Dragon Range is very performant, but if I remember, is that Dragon Range? Let me see here. You said 8945HX. Yeah, that's Dragon Range. Yeah, that's the big one though. That's not an actual mobile. I mean, it is a mobile. It's basically a laptop. I mean, it's basically the desktop CPU just put in a laptop. So yeah, I mean, that's meant for the gaming laptops. I assume you have a discrete GPU with that because that doesn't seem like that's not the type of chip that would be paired up without a discrete GPU. That's the Dragon Range. But see, I don't want the CPU. I don't want the desktop CPU in a laptop. I want a laptop chip in a laptop. This is basically the laptop CPU in the laptop. They call it the APU. AMD Threadripper equals 2.7%. Ryzen. Oh, you're basically putting all of the, hold on, wait, let me see. So you're saying Threadripper equals 2.7%. Ryzen 9000 or 7000 is 21%. APU. So you're saying Hawk Point is 4.4%. As dual duty with laptop. What, I don't understand what this 39. What is this 39%? AMD stepping on mobile at AI. What? Oh, 39% is, what is this? 39%. PS5 equals 30%. Steam equals 2%. Oh, this is what? Steam. You're talking about Steam Deck. Steam Deck 2%. This is good numbers. Wow. So, wait, what is this 39%? What is this? AMD stepping on mobile at 8000 AI. What is that? That's, you're talking about Strix Point? So Strix Point falls into 39%? Wait, what? That would include Strix Halo? R8 APU can go this. Yeah, but most of the time, yeah, you mean mobile? You mean mini PCs? Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah. Hawk Point is still relatively good because of the lane count. For a mobile APU, it's got a pretty good lane count. It's actually got better lane count than Strix Point by 4 lanes. I don't understand this though. What is this? Oh, you're basically telling me that 39% of all of AMD's wafers go to the laptop market? And this is not counting Epic, so this is just basically consumer spread. Well, you're proving me right. You're proving me right in the sense that laptop is the majority share. Hawk Point's double duty, which falls into this and this. But 39%, this is basically Hawk Point slash Strix Point slash Kraken. Is that correct? You're telling me that 39% is Hawk Point, Strix Point, and Kraken Point. Why is Hawk Point? Let's get rid of Hawk Point. Strix Point, Kraken Point, and soon Gorgon. Strix is still a minority. What is the Strix percentage? I want to know Strix Point, because Strix Point is my favorite chip right now. Strix Point is technically... I like Strix Halo a lot, but I think Strix Point I like a little bit more. I can't explain why. Maybe it's because it's my daily driver laptop. But I use it the most. But Strix Point is currently my favorite AMD CPU. Gorgon Point is the refresh. It's the replacement to Kraken Point. And I think it's also replacing Strix Point. It's Ryzen AI 400. Yeah, I know about the Hawk Point. So Hawk Point was... So for those that don't know, Hawk Point equals Ryzen 8000. The Ryzen 8000. The 8000G. Remember, you guys remember 8700G? That was a Hawk Point. So Ryzen 8000 is Hawk Point. But it is also a rebrand as Ryzen 200 series. Ryzen 200. Like Ryzen 7 260 in a Lenovo Legion. Black Friday special. This is one of the best ones for Black Friday special. So the Ryzen 200 series is also Hawk Point. Strix Point. Ryzen AI 300. Gorgon Point. Well, hold on. Kraken is also Kraken. Strix Point is Ryzen 9 or Ryzen AI 9 300. Then there was Kraken. What is Kraken Point? What in the world? Why are you spamming the chat? Kraken Point is Ryzen AI 5 and 7. Although there was a Strix Point 7. I think. Yeah, there was. For a short while there was. There is one. Gorgon Point. Ryzen AI... Oh, this is all 7300. This is Ryzen AI 400. That's Gorgon. Kraken... No. Hawk Point is original. No, I like the low wattage. I like the ones... Low wattage with all the performance. Yeah, because the battery life, man. The 15 to 28 watt TDP is where it's at for battery life. That's the reason why I like the HX370 so much. Because of the low wattage. It's like a 15 to 28 watt TDP. Yeah, but he's saying that's not him, though. Hold on. How can I... Let me see. Well, no, hold on. Not moderation activity. Well, let me see. Did we accomplish everything that I wanted to discuss? We've been live for 3 hours, so this is we're kind of at the end. Ryzen AI Max, new CPUs and more. We did kind of touch on that. Yeah, that's basically AMD's lineup. But for this year, guys, AMD's lineup is mostly Gorgon Point. Intel is the one that has more interesting stuff in mobile this year. Which is interesting because Intel put out Arrow Lake in mobile last year. So this year, Intel is going to be... Well, Panther Lake is their new thing. Panther Lake is like an upgrade to Lunar Lake. It's like a more performant Lunar Lake. So it's good, but it's kind of expensive. But I see Panther Lake is going to be in Ultrabooks. So Panther Lake is not going to be paired up with discrete GPUs. It's supposed to be like the successor to Lunar Lake. And it's good. I don't know what else is going to come out for mobile. AMD is basically doing Gorgon Point. Intel's doing Panther Lake. But you guys have to keep in mind, they're targeting different things. Panther Lake equals Ultrabooks, so that's like thin and light. So no gaming laptop, no discrete GeForce GPU. It's Panther Lake is it's one thing, its own thing, kind of like Strix Halo, where Strix Halo basically is kind of its own thing. It exists in this ultra premium category. It has the best multi-thread performance of any mobile platform. It has the best integrated graphics of any mobile platform. Panther Lake is an attempt by Intel to do something similar, but it doesn't achieve the same highs. Like if you were to overlay them on a spectrum, so it's like if we make a graph here, Panther Lake is kind of like, whoops, no, let's not do that. Panther Lake is kind of low power. It goes low power up to like it's like range is pretty broad here. Strix Halo is kind of like not as low power, but still really low power, but it goes like really high. Like you can blast a lot of power through it and it can get a lot of performance, like that liquid cooled mini PC. So this is the reason why you see Strix Halo showing up in a lot of like mini PCs. And then you're also seeing it show up in tablet form factors like the Asus Z13 Flow, the ROG Flow Z13, I believe. And then you have like an HP Elite laptop in the middle, and you have like all these mini PCs like Framework Desktop and all that stuff. Panther Lake, I expect similar things. But I think Intel is going to really focus on Ultrabooks, premium ultra-thin laptops that essentially put Panther Lake kind of like in the middle of the spectrum, kind of like this. You know what I mean? I don't see Panther Lake trying to go for like super high wattage because then it's going to hurt the battery life. And I also don't see Panther Lake going for like super low power spec, like 15 watt TDP, 10 watt TDP, because then it loses a lot of its appeal in terms of its performance. So Panther Lake is gonna go more of like in the middle of the road in terms of what it does, in terms of the actual products that are built using it. Whereas I think Strix Halo, as you guys have already seen, most of it is concentrated up here at the mini PC, so it's getting like the maximum performance out of it, where it's not really running on battery that much. I would have liked to see more Strix Halo laptops in the middle section because I really think it shines. But remember, that's what Panther Lake is. Panther Lake is more like a Strix Halo type thing. It's not something that's going to replace Arrow Lake. It's not something that's going to go and pair up with a GeForce graphics card, mobile chip. No. Arrow Lake will continue to fill that market. Arrow Lake will be replaced by Nova Lake, and Nova Lake will go into the mobile platform end of this year, but most likely in next year. Actually, next year. So that's where I expect Nova Lake to fully replace Arrow Lake in the mobile platform next year. So we've talked about mobile platforms last year. We did a couple of live streams in depth on all of Intel's mobile platforms, all of AMD's. We did block diagrams, SoC diagrams, everything. I forget which episode of Tech Thursdays it was, but definitely if you're more interested in a deep dive look at the laptop platforms, you probably want to look for that episode of Tech Thursdays. I'll try to look for it, and if I can find it, I'll link it in the description of this live stream. But that's going to be it for this episode of Tech Thursdays. We covered more than I thought in mobile. Someone was asking me about Thunderbolt. I use Thunderbolt all the time. Like, I literally use it all the time. I use it every single day. First of all, Thunderbolt I use with this laptop every single day. Like, when I literally plug it into a Thunderbolt docking station just to charge the laptop. So, but I also use it with multi-monitors and things like that. I've done a whole video that showcases behind the scenes how the laptop works with the Thunderbolt dock. So if you're interested, probably look for that video. But yeah, Thunderbolt, I expect the newer platforms to have better support for Thunderbolt 5, also known as USB 4.2. So keep that in mind. USB 4 equals Thunderbolt 4. Okay, hold on. USB 4 version 1.0 equals Thunderbolt 4. USB 4 version 2.0 equals Thunderbolt 5. Now, this is not exact, but it is close enough to say this with a high degree of accuracy. Meaning, if you have a Thunderbolt dock, it will work with a USB 4 peripheral and vice versa. So I have a ThinkPad P16. It literally has Thunderbolt 4, despite being with an AMD APU, and it's still Thunderbolt 4. So Minis Forum has a Strix Halo Ryzen AI Max mini PC that literally has Thunderbolt 5, aka USB 4 version 2.0. This one, 40 gigabit per second. This one, 80 gigabit per second. So I don't know how Minis Forum has a Thunderbolt 5 / USB 4 version 2 working with Strix Halo. I would really like to know what type of chipset they're using to pull that off, because that's not native to Strix Halo. But it is fascinating that you can buy a mini PC today from Minis Forum that has Thunderbolt 5, well, okay, USB 4 version 2, 80 gigabit. So really, really good. All right, guys. Well, that is going to be it. Hopefully that answered that last little question about Thunderbolt. We'll be doing more Thunderbolt content at the end of this year, because it is something that I'm definitely tracking for the next generation of CPUs. Okay, guys. We will be streaming this weekend, probably finishing up Fatal Frame 2 Remake. I want to finish that game. So stay tuned for that. We will probably be streaming using this thing again. I might stream Monster Hunter. I'm not 100% sure if I will, though. Because this GPU does not run that game that well without lagging the stream, unless I run the game at like 720p. So we'll figure something out. I guess I can join at the end. I gotta do something first. I'll probably try to join a little bit later. But anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for this episode of Tech Thursdays. If you're new to the channel, we do these long form open discussions about all things technology and PC DIY. Despite the kind of market that we're in right now, we still try to talk about things objectively. Even though there's a lot of issues with supply chain, well, not really supply chain, but with pricing specifically with a lot of components right now, making the PC, build your own PC hobby kind of not a really attractive hobby right now. Unfortunately, it is what it is. But regardless, we cover that on this channel. So if you're interested in this sort of content, if you like building PCs, if it's one of your hobbies or whatever, definitely hit the subscribe button so you can tune in to follow-up content, whether it's video or live stream. And in addition to this episode of Tech Thursdays, sometimes I do a gaming-focused live stream on the weekend. So if you have nothing better to do, you feel free to tune into that, hang out with the chat. Typically, I'll be playing a game that is relatively new, So in this case, we're going to be trying to finish up Fatal Frame 2 Remake, probably the scariest game to release this year. Definitely scarier than Resident Evil Requiem, for sure. It's more unsettling in terms of the environment and the creepy noises and stuff. But anyway, guys, if you're interested in that, definitely check it out this weekend. And otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Once again, thank you for viewing, and I will catch you guys next time. Take care.